Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, hello. Good morning. And pause music. Okay, are we wide awake this beautiful morning? Let's not hesitate to jump into it, girls. Things are too spicy this morning for us to even hesitate. Let me start you off with a little bit of a zinger coming to you from the Whatever podcast, starring our favorite misogynist. That's a joke. Andrew Ott Wilson. Okay. Yesterday on stream, if you missed it, members only, come join us, support the content. We covered Not So Erudite on the Whatever podcast, debating misogynists. We called it The Patriarchy versus the Patriarchy, as Erudite, through her work, does maintain and uplift the patriarchy. You know, what can I say? She's a Christian. Hey, what are you going to do? Hey. But check out this beautiful clip that came across my TikTok feed, reminding us of how lucky we are that this community doesn't primarily spend time in the conservative bubbles. Okay. Oh, chat says, girl, that video was too much for me yesterday. Oh, get ready for this one. Get ready for this one. It might be worse than everything we saw yesterday. So get ready.
Say like certain people, it's like, okay, dude, yeah, I guess you could make the case that like grape is bad for certain people.
No.
For certain people.
No, it's bad for everyone.
No, it's only bad for certain people. Here,
Andrew.
like there's women, you agree, who have orgasmed during SA.
That has nothing to do with whether it's SA.
Bro.
That has nothing to do with whether it's SA. Are you kidding me?
Bro, I didn't say whether or not it's SA. I said during SA.
What does it have to do with anything?
Well, bro, if that's the case, right, then was it bad for them?
Yes.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because there are overriding harms than just orgasm. I'm
Got
not
it.
saying that's not the case. What?
Perfect. So then here's the case then. The case is like when you say for some people, right? The reason you keep saying that is because even though it's the vast overwhelming majority of people, you want to like create this little minutia outlier, right? Is it logically possible that there's ever been a woman who's been SA'd who'd enjoyed it?
I'm not going to.
Can you answer my question? Is it logically possible?
I'm not ascribing anything to that.
Do you think there's ever been a single woman who's been SA'd and has enjoyed it?
I'm not going to answer the question.
Answer the question.
I'm not going to answer the question.
But-
I'm not gonna
because then I can't say
I'm
some
not gonna
people.
I'm not going to answer
Yeah.
whether women enjoy being great.
That's not what I asked you.
Whether a woman has enjoyed being great.
If there's ever been one. Do you
I'm
think
not-
there's ever been one?
I'm not. No, I'm not answering.
You don't
it.
think there has been?
I don't know, and I'm not going to answer.
Yeah,
it.
exactly,
I'm not
'cause
going
you
to
know-
answer.
'cause you
I'm not
know,
gonna,
'cause
this
you
is such a
fucking
weird
know.
thing. What do you? This is such a weird thing
What's
to get
wrong with
on
answering the
about.
question?
Because I'm not going to say. I'm not going to contribute to rhetoric that tries to say that there is anything good about SA.
Who said there's anything good about it?
You just said that some women orgasm, therefore that is a good of it.
No. When you say like certain people,
Anyways, good morning. How's everyone doing? We share a planet. We share a planet. We share a planet. This is the man who thinks women ought to have babies. It is their moral obligation. They ought to have babies. All right. Now that we are warmed up, okay, now that the misogyny is in the air, hopefully we don't get a copyright strike when we review this video. I did do a test stream for it earlier and I didn't get copyright struck. So I think we should be good to watch it together on stream. The Daily Show, Jordan Klepper interviewed a bunch of people, including Hassan, about misogyny and the MAGA movement and sort of winning men over to the liberal left side. And I just thought we could watch it together. Again, there is a slight chance it ends up stopping midstream. If that's the case, we have other content we can go over together. But I just thought it'd be cool to watch it together to jump into their bubble. I also do watch The Daily Show. I don't know if you guys watch The Daily Show, but I do watch them. And I watch most of the videos, but not like all. I would say like 70% of the videos they put out I probably watch, but I do miss a few here and there, and I obviously need time to catch up on some. I saw during John Green was on one of their shows as well, so I need to catch up on some stuff. But let's jump into that now that we're all revved up. Yeah, gotta love that misogyny, you know, gotta love it. All right, let's see what this is about.
While covering Donald Trump's 2024 campaign, I started to notice all sorts of new people coming into the MAGA tent. But what baffled me most was the kids.
Trump cutting deeply into first-time voters and the youth vote.
This could be a political earthquake.
Trump credits a wave of Republican podcasters, social media influencers for the support that grew for him in the 2024 election.
Gen Z has turned right.
So is it actually hip to be a Republican now?
Definitely a vibe.
I definitely think there is a little bit of that vibe coming out of the right wing where they do think that they are anti like popular culture. They think they are the new counterculture. They think they are the new rebels. They think they are the new punks, which is like a very interesting narrative for them to feel like. And this goes back to what we covered on stream yesterday with the misogynist on the Whatever podcast saying that most CEOs are women now, which has never been true. But they believe this rhetoric. And so to them, they are counterculture when they say like white men suffer the most in this world. Like that is, it's a narrative they built around a very specific bubbled amount of information they're getting. And look, we all live in bubbles. And this is the part of humility that has to come in. We all live in bubbles. Conservatives aren't unique because they're bubbled. We're all bubbled. And so this narrative we believe that like some of us aren't in the bubble is the bubble thought. The bubble convinces you, you know something that's beyond the bubble. But the only chance you could know something beyond the bubble is first admitting you're in the bubble, because we're all in bubbles. Bubbles are just perceptions, and they're shared perceptions as well. So there's the individual bubble, you within yourself, and the shared bubble, you within you in relation to things outside yourself. So you and I, my audience and I, we're in a bubble right now. This is a very specific sphere. You know, it's pretty niche, right? I don't have, 75,000 people watching me stream, which indicates to me that I'm more of a niche bubble. And so to follow Brittany Simon is in of itself a niche bubble. And then once you leave the Brittany Simon bubble, I'm sure you're having a different relationship with, other bubbles too, right? We're jumping into the Jordan Klepper Daily Show bubble. We're jumping into the Hassan bubble. We're jumping into these bubbles because they're having a different relationship with reality. And we're all sharing this sort of like, we're all sharing the same planet, but with different perspectives, right? So of course, conservatives, even though we're all on a shared planet, have come to the conclusion that the hardest person or the hardest, way to exist in the world is as a white man is because of the bubble they're in. Some of it can feel true, but the real why is different. They're not struggling because they're white men. The why is they're struggling under the weight of capitalism and in the reality that they haven't quite, accepted is true, that everyone suffers under capitalism, even white men. Like they just don't want to accept it, but that's what's more or less happening.
There's a lot of MAGA energy here?
Yes, there is. A lot.
Yeah.
We want to make a change for our generation. We don't want any more of the left-wing radical ideas. We want none of that.
What's the vibe like right now with young Republicans?
Oh, we are feeling victorious. I think it's going to go down in history books.
It's going to be
I like that they actually kind of look like each other right now. They literally look like they both dress the same today.
up there with like the fall of Rome.
Maybe, us guys, we do like talking about the Roman Empire.
Love talking about the Roman and like doing the salute too, apparently.
Oh, Jesus.
Are
Lord.
they true MAGA believers, or is this just a rebellious phase? To find out, I'm ditching the Trump rallies and meeting these young Americans on their turf, outside the quad.
Oh, Jordan Klepper has like a boot on. Did he break his foot? That's kind of crazy that he's actually working out here with like a boot on his foot. But okay.
Outside the octagon and outside my comfort zone on spring break. I know I'm ready. These kids are gonna love me. First up, I'm heading to Texas A&M, one of the largest universities in the U.S. with over 70.
Oh, interesting. The college bubble is another one that we kind of take for granted. Like, I didn't go to college. I did community college for a hot second, but I didn't go to a university. But like my besties did. Like my two of my girlfriends, they went through university. One of them has 3 different degrees in engineering. And, I have all these friends who have that experience, but like I never had one. So sometimes when people talk about college, I don't have any idea exactly what they mean. It actually takes me a long time to even understand like the bubbles speak of college, like the different degrees or how many years are for XYZ or, undergrad, postgrad, like all these things are just so bubble to me that I wonder how many Americans also feel left out because they don't know the language. Like so much of what defines a bubble in a niche community is your relationship to the language used. So I wonder how many MAGA voters in particular, though a lot of them have gone to college, how many of them also feel like they don't have a way in because they themselves aren't raised in a bubble that even talks about the language. Like I didn't have parents that I don't know. I had parents that like didn't understand how college worked, even though like my mom's side of the family, all very educated. It's like, it's interesting because my dad's side of the family, I feel like without education was able to move into engineering and has like jobs in relation to engineering. So like the differences are so fascinating. My mom's side is like doctors and lawyers and, you know, that kind of, or even like just people with bachelor degrees, but like, you know, maybe they're in housing or they're realtors or something. But there is so much education in that bubble. And I see the differences between how the bubbles live, what neighborhoods they chose, what friends they have, what politics they have. Definitely more Democrat on my mom's side of the family, definitely more Republican on my dad's side of the family. So it is kind of interesting, like when you look at it that way, but all of it is bubble speak. And since my parents weren't very big on college growing up, the only colleges they liked were Catholic colleges. They didn't really immerse themselves in the college language to then give it to us. So my 2 siblings, out of 10 kids, only 2 of us went to college and graduated. Out of 10 kids. Yet all of my parents' children, with the exception of 1, but you know, most of us literally all managed to have careers, pay our bills, have jobs, you know, ranking from, you know, like minimum wage to salaried positions. And so, you know, it's interesting, the different bubbles though, especially when it comes to conservative educated people and non-conservative educated people, right?
3,000 students. So what are the issues pushing so many young people to the right?
I was very upset that the last administration let so many illegal immigrants into this country.
Whenever Biden got in,
Okay, for the young kids who are like, I'm upset they let illegals into this country, I just want to know how it impacts you on your daily basis and what does it feel like? Because I'll be so for real, I don't notice it. I don't think about it. All I think is like, I would be terrified to be in a place without paperwork. I have anxiety when I do everything correctly, let alone if I did something incorrectly. You know what I'm saying? But also, how does that impact your life? Like for real?
everything went up. Prices, gas, diesel. I drive diesel, and diesel went up like crazy.
Freedom of speech, freedom for everybody. It's especially for me in my theology school, just being able to talk about Christ more often.
My dad's in the military, and I really like military. So, and all of my friends are going into it right now.
You're of military age. What if Donald Trump called you up to go invade Greenland?
Then I guess we're invading Greenland.
Clearly, I need to better understand these kids. So much like when I was in college, can somebody please tell me what's cool?
Chet says these kids just parrot what they hear. I mean, that's pretty typical of adults, though. Adults just parrot what they hear. And these are adults, by the way. These are technically adults, like legal adults. But I see that from adults. That's why I say, oh, I can tell what bubble you're in by the way you're asking the question. Or I can tell most of the time what bubble you're coming from by what you parrot to me. Or, oh, I can tell who you were listening to. In the same way you can tell probably who I've been listening to by the way that I speak, you know? And so, you know, there's something to be said about that. Now, I will say a lot of people I meet, Democrat or Republican, a lot of the young people just ask their parents who to vote for, and then they just kind of do that. Right? Like, I've heard this from Republicans. I've heard this from Democrats. Like, oh, I don't even know who to vote. I just ask my parents who to vote for, and I do that. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the best, but I think that's the reality.
I'm out of touch. The last time I was on a college campus, I was playing GoldenEye in the dorm.
Okay.
Do you know GoldenEye?
I don't know GoldenEye.
Is being conservative cool? No?
I wouldn't say it's cool. I feel like it's just the right way to do things now.
It's not cool. It's just morally superior.
Oh, absolutely.
Woke? Cool?
Pretty annoying, honestly.
Boondock Saints. You guys still putting posters up? The Boondock Saints?
Oh my
Boondock
God.
Saints? America first. Cool?
I think America First is cool, absolutely.
Golf.
Stop. I think Jordan Klepper's in his 40s, right? So I saw him say his age earlier because I checked out the Hassan clip. So he's like 43, 44, I think. And I'm dying.
Of America?
Cool. Golf of America.
Boondock Saints 2?
What is, no, Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Classic.
Wolf of Wall Street is in.
Always been in.
Is it an in because we understand it's a satire, or we just like the financial crisis of it all?
I think it's just how much he actually was able to get away with.
So
Oh.
you see it as a hero's journey.
I think I see it as a hero's journey, yeah.
Good to know. So
Yeah. You gotta love it when there's a boy in your life who's like, the Wolf of Wall Street's like kind of my hero. And I'm like, yeah, I think we took the wrong lesson away. Kind of like very Aaron Yeager of everybody to think Aaron was the good guy. Like, I think we took the wrong lessons or different lessons from this story.
there was a lot I could teach them about American cinema, but who was there to engage them on their broader concerns for the country? Well, today, it was the right-wing group Turning Point USA, which claims to be the largest and fastest
Just kidding. That was sarcasm. I didn't mean to cheer on Turning Point.
youth organization in America. And people were pumped. to get free shit. Did you get that hat here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Charlie Kirk threw it to me.
He starts to throw him.
Wow, Charlie Kirk touched that hat, guys.
Shoulders be like, yo, go ask for one.
Where'd you get it?
I snagged it from whoever's behind me.
You stole it from somebody. Oh, is that the most MAGA shit ever?
There was a little kid who was in the front row, and he was standing there wanting a hat, and Charlie Kirk went down and gave him a hat.
Groom
It's beautiful. We gave him a hat.
when they're young. It's funny. When I went to college campuses, they would give free hats to you to sign up for a credit card. And then you get a cool free hat, and then 10 years later, a lifetime of debt.
Yes, sir.
Similar. So who is this hat-tossing Pied Piper, wooing kids to the right? MAGA darling, Charlie Kirk.
Oh,
I love Charlie
Lord.
Kirk. I listen to him.
Why don't they? I want to point out something, but I feel like I can never point it out because it sounds. No, Brittany, don't do it. Brittany, don't do it. Just keep streaming. Just keep streaming. Just keep streaming. Just keep streaming.
Just about every single day.
Everybody knows who Charlie Kirk is. If they don't know the name, they know the face.
And he's reaching millions with these pearls of wisdom.
White, college, indoctrinated women will ruin America if we let them. Most college degrees are meaningless, and most of you guys are being totally scammed by being here. I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Girl.
What makes Charlie Kirk so effective on a campus like this?
I just think it's all the research he's done, all the statistics that he has to back it up.
I think he just really knows his stuff.
The guy's consistent.
He's consistent.
He's like TikTok. I love TikTok. 3 months ago, I hate TikTok. So his consistency can flip here and there. But even if Charlie Kirk doesn't seem to believe the things he says, for some students, he was the only one speaking to their concerns.
A couple of years ago, I started finding more people because I got so tired of this not being able to speak my mind. So I needed to find.
You know, I do think that this is a real. Okay, stay grounded with me, girls. This is a real experience all people have. All people feel rejection. The introspection you need to do, though, is to ask yourself if you're being rejected for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. Because there is a chance that technically the group is rejecting you because you're actually meant to be rejected. And I've been thinking about this a lot because, you know, we watched that Whatever podcast with Not So Erudite yesterday, and I'm not a fan of Kyla's perspective that had we not rejected Jordan Peterson, maybe he would have been a good person. Kyla, joke's on you. I've always been a fucking piece of shit. Ethan, listen, these Machiavellian mothers think if they're nice to me, I'll suck their tits. Joke's on them. I'm going to suck it whether they like it or not. I'm just saying, as a man, I can do whatever I want. Listen, I just think this idea that grown or bigoted or certain people will just be good people if we're nicer to them. All Hitler needed was a hug from his mother. You know what I'm saying? You remember that white woman that came out? Who was she crying for? Andrew Tate or something? She's like, I'm sorry, your mother never hugged you. And I'm like, oh my, girl, be quiet, girl. No matter how many hugs a mom gives you, you can still just turn out to be a piece of shit. Okay? Stay grounded with me, girl. Stay grounded with me, okay? I do think they're having a real human feeling of rejection, but I do think they should sit with that and ask themselves, maybe I'm being rejected for the right reason. Or maybe I'm not. And then, of course, the right reason is subjective to the bubble.
Find people that actually knew how to say things to a... I'm forgetting the words. I'm sorry.
You needed somebody to be more articulate for you.
Yes, because you see me like right now, I can't put words together. So
you're looking for somebody to put words in your mouth.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Well, not like that exactly.
Jordan. So you want words put in your mouth? Ah, okay. Love that. Chad says, yeah, but what makes a person turn out to be a piece of shit? Biology or environment? I mean, both. We're not raised in a vacuum. You are a product of what you've observed and what you've understood, and you're limited by your biology, but you're also limited by your own limited understanding of your biology. If you literally think like these conservatives, that you're limited to your biology and your only point of existence is procreation, that's your fault for limiting your own relationship with biology because you decided to go with the first caveman thought about being a person. There are so many different ways to have a deeper, more profound relationship with biology. It is very unlikely that it is very much more likely that every person with the right tools and desire to be curious and introspective will have a deeper relationship with their biological experience. Your biological experience, yes, brings limitations into your life, but you don't know those limitations until you test them. So you cannot actually know. It's the same thing with autism. Like at the end of the day, autism isn't a monolithic experience, that my relationship with autism is going to be different from somebody else's, but I am not automatically limited because I'm autistic in a specific way. I have to figure out for me in which ways my autism is playing a role in my disability and in which ways I can overcome that part of it without well understanding that I won't be able to literally overcome all of it. I can overcome more of it than I think I can, right? And that is because I know and I accept that there will be limitations, but I also accept that I got to figure out to what point am I limited. It's not about wishing you could cure something or saying one day I won't be limited. It's about saying that though I'll be limited, let's make sure I'm not limiting myself accidentally. But that's my decision to engage with that curiosity and introspection about myself. Most people aren't going to engage with that, including conservatives who think they're doing it all the time. Conservatives are always spouting bullshit about pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, saying things like, I'm not limited, I'm not disabled, I don't let my disability get in the way. But the way that they're limiting themselves is their lack of curiosity and openness to popping the bubble. And they're limiting themselves in a whole slew of ways, including following the patriarchy, giving into misogyny, believing that women are inherently inferior, talking about gay people like they're all groomers, trans people like they're a threat to civilization and children. So like, you know, all of these things I think have to come into play, and we have to be okay with that, right? We have to do the work to figure out individually what is my relationship with my relationship to self, my biology and everything else, right? But we're not exempt from our own prejudice and biases. So we have to start there as well, right? We will have bias, we will have prejudice. The question is, do we have the skill to deconstruct it, right? Chad says, I think he was trying to say that the guy was giving him language that he didn't have before. Yes, that is what he was literally saying. But the joke is Jordan Klepper is a comedian. So he's going to like find ways to dunk on people he's interviewing, right? That's kind of the point of Jordan Klepper. But it is what he was saying, right? That he likes that other people can say things that he's been feeling. But we all like that. The dilemma is that you can't pedestal people just because they figured out a way to say things you've been thinking. And so what you do when you pedestal a Charlie Kirk is you don't allow him to be held to account, because now you're identifying with him. And now when you hold Charlie to account, you're holding yourself to account, which, by the way, is the burden of knowing that people won't hold themselves to account, right? Like that's the irony of sort of existing within the bubble, right? Chet says, exactly, I'd say more environment biology can be a modifier, but the experiences we get, what we gain through our environment is what truly shapes us. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give credit to one thing or another, because it's impossible for us to be having all the same experience. And so for me, I don't know what truly shapes us. I would argue my consciousness truly shapes me. I would argue my consciousness seems to be stronger than both my biology and my environment at this stage of my introspection journey. But that might be because I've dedicated my life to doing that. I've like, that's my special interest, is like I've dedicated my life into making sure that I am not moved in a direction that doesn't feel like I understand why I'm being moved in that direction, right? So there is something to be said about that, but maybe that's gotta coincide with my contribution into my own philosophy system, is like maybe the framework of the levels is to prove that you are not singularly impacted one way, but instead there could be a way to identify what that singular thing is. And it could end up being your consciousness, which is like which is interesting. We'll talk about that in the story after this, about the idea of consciousness and being alive, and how valuable is that? And is it the most valuable thing? But then if we think consciousness is the most valuable thing, how do we extend that out in all areas of our life? Anyways, we'll get into it after this.
That's what I was doing right there.
Yes.
What I'm talking about is what Charlie Kirk kind of does inside.
Yes.
Yes, he puts the words in your mouth.
Yeah, making enough sense for me so I memorize what he says, then I can freely say it to...
Exactly. So basically, his words become your own.
Yes.
His thoughts become your own.
It's awesome.
And some of those beautifully crafted words play great as clickbait online.
What is a woman? What is a woman? It's not a trick question. What is a woman?
He always asks liberals, like, what is a woman?
Yeah, we literally saw like 5 or 10 minutes ago.
You got to see it live. What is a woman?
Finally, he was like, all right, give me your definition. What is a woman?
How do you define what a woman is?
I think it's just genetics.
I go with like a woman is somebody who sues Donald Trump for sexual assault.
It's not funny.
31-year-old Kirk and the billionaires who fund him are successfully influencing young minds and making those young minds skeptical of anyone else trying to influence young minds.
Mentor work. He's been to campus probably like 5 times. I don't know why he's still coming here.
Feels like groomers.
Yes.
You have somebody like Beto O'Rourke. You have like an adult man come to a campus trying to groom somebody around his own political ideology.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That shouldn't happen at all.
No, it shouldn't.
That's why it's refreshing to have somebody like Charlie Kirk come to campus and bring his like 30-year-old mentality here to shape the minds of tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Seems like these Aggies were pledging the fraternity of MAGA. And since no one invited me to any keggers, it was time to ditch these nerds and hang with the jocks outside an ultimate fighting event.
Oh, Lord.
You guys hear who's coming? Donald Trump! Trump's coming. Yeah! After the break.
They all, okay, you know when conservatives make fun of people for having blue hair and a piercing and stuff? I think that's what's so beautiful about bubbles is we signal to one another the overlap and how we feel. It's why when people watch my content, they think I'm in the witchy crystal bubble, even though I'm not in that bubble. It's because the way I do like the fashion from that bubble, but I don't believe the bubble, right? I just like the fashion from the bubble. So people are like, oh, Brittany's probably owns crystals. I like rocks, which is not the same thing, but I really like the fashion from the bubble. And so it is kind of interesting, like what fashion means and how it signals. And there is a stereotype for a reason, but it doesn't, like I said, I would be the exception to the rule. Aesthetics don't always tell you people's values because my aesthetic does not match or coincide with that typical stereotypical belief. So be careful when you assume people's beliefs because of the way that they look.
So Trump
but also it's nice to have a group of people that you can signal to that like you're similar, which is why we create symbols. It's why we create like speak through aesthetic.
Unexpectedly well with the young voters, but he killed it with the bros, who shifted roughly 15 points to the right. There's only one place in the world to find out why. A UFC event in Miami, where the sun is shining, fists are flying, and the energy is jacked.
How are you feeling? Oh, I'm fucking lit, baby.
Did you guys hear who's coming?
Donald Trump!
Trump's coming.
Yeah!
That's right, and because it's America, tonight's main event is the Commander-in-Chief bringing his cabinet bros ringside.
Yeah, Donald Trump in the building.
Yeah. Hide the women and kids.
I know, right?
Goal is to get close enough to see him, to say, yo, Donald, look at my shirt! Go!
Yeah. What do you hope his reaction is to that?
Well, if he sees me, I hope maybe he comes up to me and taps me up. You know,
Oof, I'm so glad I married a woman.
Get in there. You want to be in charge of the Department of Education?
Not me, man.
Feels like a president coming to a fight, giving off some real Caesar vibes. Do you imagine he's going to come in there and give one of these to the fighters? No? Tariffs? No tariffs.
Jordan Klepper is so funny. RL, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, did you cover the Ariana situation? Because I don't have a full grasp of what happened. I have no idea what you're talking about. Ariana Grande? Thank you for the super chat. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I appreciate you assuming that I do.
The UFC has 40 yearly live events, 600.
Oh, Adriana. Oh, you mean Adriana Smith? Yeah, we're going to cover her after this segment. I thought you meant Ariana Grande. You mean Adriana, the woman who's being kept alive even though she's brain dead for the fetus growing inside of her because of the heartbeat bill? Yeah, we're going to cover that after.
140 million fans broadcasting into 900 million homes. So what is it about this blood sport that connects the fans and the fighters with the most powerful man on the planet in such a spiritual way?
You don't watch MMA at first. You get baptized.
I saw it once. I felt like
you get baptized?
I got circumcised. Totally honest. I felt like a smaller man in that room. This is combat sports journalist Luke Thomas, an expert in the world of MMA. What is it? What makes these fighters right wing?
Training martial arts to defend yourself is like 10% of it. It is really about defining yourself. It's about learning who you are. These are massively transformative for people. And you begin to learn lessons about self-reliance, discipline, order. You're getting people sometimes 16 years of age, early 20s. These are sometimes people that don't have hardcore ideas about how the world works. I think that they're building out political ideologies from these personal lessons.
They're training and they're discovering who they are. And it's like, oh, I'm the kind of person who really wants ICE to deport a third grader to Ecuador.
What they would
Oof. I'm so easy. It's so easy to make me laugh. Just point out the cruelty of human beings in a sarcastic voice and I am falling over.
they would say is, I don't want to hear any excuses for why things go wrong in your life.
I think we've had a lot of beta males representing our country for a while.
The Republican Party, led by Trump, has really said enough's enough. They don't want no whiny baby.
Disney levels. They like put on their makeup and dance to the YMCA and bitch about not winning Emmys.
I think this guy is a YouTuber. I'm pretty sure I've seen this guy's YouTube channel. I think this guy is a liberal who explains conservative men, because I think I've seen his YouTube channel before. I think I might have even featured him on a podcast. He looks so familiar to me. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he actually explains manosphere bubbles. So I think he's explaining to us the bubble, right? Like, so he's saying in the UFC or the MMA, you're getting baptized. You're now in the cult, in the bubble. And by the way, cult is a very loose word. None of us are being serious about the word cult, as cult actually is a real word that means a real thing. And it doesn't just mean i.e. religion or i.e. club. Like, just a reminder that the word cult is used very hyperbolically in all of these conversations. So I think he's just trying to say that it becomes a community. And look, we keep saying men need community, you know, and I think they do. I just think it's interesting what happens when men make community. Yeah. You know, Chad said, do you consider MAGA as a cult? Because I do. If you mean, do I consider half of the US voting population or more than half of it in a cult? No. I'm not to be so autistic, but definitions do matter in this context. So no, I don't believe if you're a MAGA, you're in a cult. I do think there are parts of MAGA that are cultish. But if you mean everybody who voted Trump or everybody who wears a MAGA hat, no. I just think they think they're in a cool club. You know what I mean? Like, they just think they're in like a vibe. If you mean like is there a sect that is cult-like? 100%. Definitely. But do I think everyone who voted for Trump or wears a MAGA hat is a part of the cult? No. You know? Hello?
Say is, I don't want to hear any excuses for why things go wrong in your life.
I think we've had a lot of beta males representing our country for a while.
The Republican Party, led by Trump, has really said enough's enough. They don't want no whiny baby.
Disney level. They put on their makeup and dance to the YMCA.
I don't want to hear any whiny babies. Also, white men are the most discriminated group. It is so hard to be a man today. We are underappreciated. Nobody cares about our feelings. We can't even express ourselves without women being turned off at our tears. Anyways, I don't want to hear anyone complain about anything because you're just a beta. Bitch.
And bitch about not winning Emmys.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's Trump. Trump does that. But
I wasn't paying attention.
Trump's relationship with the UFC world started with the UFC CEO and president, Dana White.
Dana White has said he's had a relationship with Donald Trump that goes back to their early days when he and his partners took over the UFC.
Guys, gays, he doesn't mean partners as in romantic. He means partners as in business. But also,
controversial figure known for, among other things, attacking his wife, underpaying his fighters, and creating a monopoly in the sport.
Monopoly? We're just the best.
Which might have helped motivate White to campaign on behalf of Daddy Trump at MMA live events, MMA podcasts, and the Republican National Convention.
You can see.
I saw a meme that was like Freud hearing what everyone calls the men they're dating now, daddy. And I was dying, and it was like him dancing. Going,
If the UFC gets out of it, there's going to be no antitrust enforcement. And the other side, look what Trump gets. He gets this political constituency fed to him. He gets to have his image laundered.
Trump is the most resilient human being that I've ever met in my life.
You see what he's doing with the tariffs?
Oh,
Yeah. He plays hardball.
I think he's just a badass, and all the UFC people are just badass.
Take any of the greatest fighters of all time. Trump is number one.
But like he's fighting for the American people.
Donald Trump's a fighter.
Yeah.
And he refused to tap out of the 2020 election. That's a fighter.
Okay, well.
If you are one of these young kids who has some heart and some grit and some determination and you want to win, there's never been more opportunity than there is right now.
I was seeing a pattern. Young men are seeking a model of manhood, but the only ones successfully offering it to them seem to range from wife slappers to outright Hitler stands. Like one of this man's.
fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. I want to keep dancing to the music because that's just how it is. You know what I mean? But also, fuck this guy. This is the racist guy. This guy's a racist. Here's the thing. And I think this is why patriarchy is so hurtful for men, but sounds like it's good for them. But ultimately, anybody who exists in a world that you get to think to judge people simply for being born, like you're automatically on the wrong side. Like judging people for how they were born instead of examining how difficult it must be to be in a world that judges you for how you were born. And I know white men think they're being judged for simply being white. We're judging you for upholding the system that consistently uplifts you at the expense of everybody else. And your ignorance towards how that system is uplifting you at the expense of everybody else is making you complicit in that. We're not judging you because you were literally born white. We don't care that you have white skin. We care that you refuse to engage in the deconstruction that will allow you to realize how you were complicit in the crimes that the system is committing against the people, while letting you believe you're the victim of the system.
Big fighters.
Bryce Mitchell.
T-Man, welcome to memberships.
So what's his deal?
That's one of the rowdy characters.
Yeah, he's rowdy, like occasionally he swears.
A little more rowdy than that. He talks about the man with the mustache.
Talks about Hitler.
Correct.
Like, boo Hitler?
He said he wanted to go fishing with him.
Oh.
I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research. I really do think before Hitler got on meth, he was a guy to go fishing with. He fought for his country. He wanted to purify.
I'm sorry, what did he say?
Think before Hitler got on meth.
Before Hitler got on meth?
He was a guy to go fishing with. He fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays.
Wow.
Yeah, I hope this man gets housing and health care and education for his family. And I hope he also gets fired for whatever job he has, because I don't know why you'd want that guy working with you. You know what I mean? As an employee. But this is what the controversy was. He is allowed to fight because Dana White's like, we're going to solve this by getting into the ring together. You know what I mean? T-Man, thank you so much for sending 5 memberships to the community. Let's go, girls. Enjoy that. You know, girl.
He just hit the bigotry trifecta. I'm sure it turned off all his fans.
Yeah, we went to the press conference yesterday. It was like crazy because we thought people could boo him. They cheered louder like for him than they did for John.
Oh, great. They cheered louder for him than the other guy. Stop making babies with these men. Stop making babies with these men. Stop making babies with these men. When you're on dates with men, ask them these questions. Are you a fan of Joe Rogan? Dana White? How do you feel about Trump? What do you think about this UFC guy? What do you think about the MMA? Ask men you're dating, especially if you're dating a man. Ask them what their hobbies are. Who do you hang out with? Who do you like? Why do you like them? You know, ask them all of it. And if they're liberal, ask them even harder. Are they liberal so they're watching Asmon and Destiny? Red flag, right? Are they liberal so they're listening to Joe Rogan? Like, red flag. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the most serious time to do preventative care. You want to do preventative care, ladies? Theys, thems, gays, gay men too. Don't be dating men who are obsessed with homophobic bubbles, because gay men also suffer from internalized homophobia. We all do. You have to date somebody who is not going to put you at risk by having favorites that will uplift a administration that will create policy to come for you. Okay? Ugh.
John Silva.
For the Nazi guy?
Yeah, for the Nazi guy.
You know what? Chat says girls generally don't care, neither do guys. It's why we have Trump. Well, just a reminder that most of Americans don't vote. So voting is a very niche population of people. And a lot of people that love Trump didn't even vote because they just assumed he'd win or not, or they just liked being on his team without even being at the polls. So just remember, like, voting is a very niche thing. But I will say this. I watched Financial Diet with Chelsea, and I'm going to talk about this. I have this whole thing coming where I do think that I have disagreements with Chelsea over a lot of things, but one thing that I do agree on is that you need to make sure you do not marry the wrong person. Marrying the wrong person is so bad, no matter your gender, no matter your political persuasion. You have to vet your dating partners, and you have to really judge their character, not their potential, not the possibility of outcome, but really their values and morals. And when temptation hits, you know, you got to make sure they're going to make the right decisions, right? RL, thank you so much for the super chat, says turning them all into the gays. This is sad, truly. Wait, are you, because he said that the Jews are turning everybody into the gays and that's why Hitler genocided the Jews? Are you saying this is sad, like sarcasm, because it'd be funny to turn everybody gay? Because everybody is gay, really. Okay, now that's sarcasm. Listen, so I think like preventative care when dating is so important. Do not date these men and do not hold out for these men to, quote, deconstruct and be better. And I say this as a woman who dated men who were liberal identified, but often through their own work, their misogyny was dripping. The way they talked about people, the way they would complain that being white men was so hard. And by the way, that was towards the ends of the relationships where I'd start to realize like, oh, why are you talking about white men having it the hardest, right? Like that would be a automatic breakup now. But I was young in my 20s and I just thought, oh, like they needed therapy. They need to deconstruct. Stop waiting for these people to deconstruct. If they are saying things like, don't you think black people have more advantages than white people? Dump them. If they say things like, don't you think women are catered to way more than men? Dump them. If they say things like, well, don't you think like trans people are kind of like delusional? Dump them. If they're saying things like, well, I don't know, like I support gay people, but like I'd be kind of sad if our kid was gay, dump them. no matter their gender, dump them.
Hitler's
and don't assume just because they're gay that they're progressive. Thank you.
bad, everybody.
That's great.
You know, but I want Bryce Mitchell to win.
So
to knock his ass
Hitler
out.
is bad,
yes,
but not a deal breaker. Now, I'm not saying a MAGA-fied UFC will lead every young man into Nazi trout fishing, but I am saying with an unhealthy devotion to Trump and a glorification of violence, they could end up like this man, Scott Fairland. What is it about MMA that the MAGA faithful love?
I mean, let's be real. I think it's the violence.
Now, based on appearance, Scott Fairland may look like a combination of a former pro MMA fighter and a January 6th attendee, but in reality, that's exactly who he is.
Uh-oh.
The cross.
He almost had me, girl. I was like, ooh, is he progressive? No.
In solitary on Christmas, what a staple.
You tattooed yourself with a staple?
And coffee.
Whoa.
And Vaseline, burnt Vaseline.
I gotta tell you, you gotta get on Etsy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I've seen a big uprising in the younger age demographic. I just think it's a time where we're seeing so much violence, maybe, that parents are getting their kids involved at an earlier age so they can defend themselves should something come awry.
Though the line between self-defense and what MAGA world has described as a normal tourist visit is blurry. So where were you on J6?
Well, I made it to right here. That was rotunda, but when I saw 100 plus photographers, I turned around and walked my ass right back out.
Pull back here. I was like,
you were in my armpit.
I was right there. I was right there. Started here, and then I ran down your armpit, and I got on the accelerator around your cock.
Girl.
And while I was grabbing the first train out of town, Scott was using his MMA skills in the real world. He pled guilty to punching a DC Metro police officer in the face, although he says there's more to the story than meets the eye. The eye of thousands of cameras and investigations.
Obviously, there were paid instigators, agitators, and motivators that were in that crowd.
They were manipulating people.
Absolutely.
How did they manipulate you to punch a cop?
Now you're just trying to be funny. That makes no fucking sense.
Do you not see your actions as violent that day?
I see it as self-defense.
A refrain I've heard from many J6ers. Few of them see themselves as perpetrators of violence. They're victims, literal choir boys, especially when they were locked up together late at night.
I was one of the guys that started the national anthem every night at 9 o'clock.
Okay, so let's get grounded, zoom out with me. Get grounded, but zoom out with me. Okay, we're gonna ground ourselves, but we're gonna zoom out at the same time. One of the topics I've avoided on this channel to talk about, because I think there are just smarter people who have covered it before me, and I think I probably should just make a list of videos of those people instead of me trying to cover it, is political violence and when it makes sense and when it doesn't, and how liberation through violence is sometimes necessary. And how to have the conversation with January 6ers about why their choice of political violence wasn't analogous to maybe liberation movements they've seen in the past, especially in relation to people of color, and why there might be a little deviation in how our communities see the justification of that violence. And I think what's difficult is that January 6ers are the back the blue Trump voters who are uplifting fascism, but then wanting to take on the mantle of also being freedom fighters. And these just two things don't match up together. I think that's really the biggest difference, is that ultimately they don't understand that as long as you're uplifting MAGA, as long as you are fighting for fascism, as long as you are backing the blue, you can't also be for the liberation of the people, because all of those things are institutionalized organizations to keep the man down, if you will. So I think what would be really great is if all of those people on January 6th came together with progressive liberation fighters, and we came together to free us of fascism. But then, you know, again, it's like my podcast yesterday. If you guys didn't see it, please go watch it. Theo Von came out and said Palestine's a genocide. And I was like, wow, Theo, that's really great. And then the next day went out and did a 30-minute opener for Trump in Qatar. And I was like, you can talk about how Palestine is a genocide, how we need to liberate people from fascism. But the moment you back Trump, then everything you said before feels contradictory. But I can understand how maybe you're just getting there. And I wish these people could understand that their form of political violence would have been much more understood had it not been inspired by the man himself, who is Trump, right? Who's deporting people and targeting US citizens and doing all this stuff. But I think that's the dilemma, is they don't understand, like, either we're all free or none of us are free. But also, if progressives win, you guys get education and healthcare. And police officers aren't going to be allowed to target you. right? But if conservatives win, then we lose all of those things. We never get those things because we don't have them now. And then police officers, like Trump said, get to exist with immunity. So, he can sit here and say he was punching a cop in self-defense, but you back the guy who wants to give that cop immunity. So what are we talking about? I think that's the difference. Is like, how do you explain to this bubble that they have a good idea, but they're executing in the wrong way? Actually, wait, let me show you this video that is so related to this. Actually, this is what I love about TikTok, is I'll be reviewing a bigger video and a TikTok will just like perfectly explain this.
The country.
Look at this.
Is run by a small group of power-hungry elites. They own the media, they own the government, and they write the laws to serve themselves.
It says, talking to your friend that reads conspiracy theories. You guys know how I feel about conspiracy theories. Bad conclusions using bad data.
Yes. They manipulate markets all over the world, and their greed has crashed the economy countless times. 100%. They traffic women and sometimes even minors. They do. But worst of all, they actually fund both sides of every war. Yes, you finally get it. Billionaires are ruined. It's the Jews. You the country.
Okay, this is why conspiracy theorists often feel like they're correct, because they have some good inclination, but the conclusion is so bad. Like, what? How did you know? That's not what I'm saying. Like, you can say the government is against us and still say the government should change to be for us. So Republicans will say, I don't know why Democrats want more government because the government's so evil, while still voting for a man who wants to give the government just like every right over your life, period, right? And then Democrats or progressives, two different bubbles, but okay, just for the sake of conversation, they want the government to serve us because they're for us. So we want to give them the system overhaul that moves it so the system actually protects its citizens, but doesn't give them more power over us. It gives us the power to make sure the system is giving to us what we are entitled to as taxpayers. Food, water, shelter, clothing, hopefully to some extent in a progressive future. So that's the dilemma. Is like you have an agreement, but both come to horrible conclusions about that agreement. And that's the confusion. That's why my conservative parents will get mad at me and say, I thought you were anti-government. Why are you voting for government? And I'll say, I thought you were anti-government. Why are you voting for Trump? And we'll look at each other like, why are you doing this? And it's because we have different ways of viewing what the government is supposed to do in practice. And then, of course, their religion is playing a bigger role in this because they are anti-trans, anti-gay, anti-abortion, anti all these things, that ultimately all of their beliefs believe in bigger government as long as the government is like in between your legs. Now they're into the government. Now they want the government intervention. Progressives want governments to pay for food, water, clothing, shelter, like for the basics. That's a very reductive way of saying it, but I'm just, for the sake of conversation, being reductive. And so that's the dilemma we run into with the bubble differences.
J6 choir, that's us singing through the phone.
That's you?
Yes.
What were you, soprano? Yes. The J6 choir is a real thing, and they sound exactly how you think they'd sound. I don't want to be critical of the J6 choir, but the harmonies were mid.
Let's hear yours. Go. Let's hear your rendition. Let's go.
Oh, say, can you see?
Okay, that's not bad.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last
Okay, we don't have to listen to any more of that. Maybe it's time to dip into the lighter side of nationalism.
Spring break, Gulf of America. Let's go.
After the break.
Let's go.
It was becoming clear that the MAGA youth were different from conservatives of the past. Fewer policies about taxes, more policies about owning libs and bringing guns out when the sun's out. And that was never more evident than on the shores of Trump's first big accomplishment.
Spring break, Gulf of America. Let's go.
The name Gulf of America,
just kidding.
It just means...
Sorry, I'm getting really into the bubble, guys, but just know every cheer I make is sarcastic. Okay? I'm not cheering the Gulf of America. I'm just enjoying the woo-woo. Hey, when I bubble hop, I really get into the bubble, okay? We're really jumping into this bubble.
Fucking freedom and peace and liberty and happiness.
Fucking freedom, peace and liberty and happiness.
That's what it means to me, man.
The drinks taste a little bit colder. The sun's a little brighter. Yeah.
Really awesome that he named it the Gulf of America.
This is the Gulf of America.
This is the Gulf of America.
To everybody.
To everybody.
Except for the rest of the world.
Yeah, they got their own oceans.
It feels amazing. It feels like the greatest country. It feels like the greatest ocean, the Gulf of America. It's amazing.
The greatest.
Look at this. It feels so good. It makes you almost forget the stock market was down 800 points yesterday. But perhaps I was missing the name change's soft power benefits.
You know, you say maybe hey, do you want to go on a late night walk right on the Gulf of America?
Are hookups easier this year during spring break?
I feel like it's definitely easier to connect on a patriotic side of things.
A patriotic side of things.
Yeah.
And under a Trump administration, now there's some sexy ambiguity, whether it's chlamydia
Ooh, sexy.
or measles, who knows?
Who knows? Discord said, honest question, how can we build a government to do all that without people becoming corrupt? The only thing I've thought of so far is to be small enough, or for us to be small enough countries. We never will. It will never happen, and we will all die trying. Still worth trying. We never will. It will never happen, and we will still keep trying because it is better to die trying. You cannot change the nature of man. You could only have a deeper relationship with it. We could never move billions of people in a positive direction. We can only move small portions. It is easier for the individual to move faster than the consensus or the majority or the group. Okay. So we will die without accomplishing it. We will live trying to accomplish it, and it will be worth it in 1,000 years. It just will not be worth it for the next 200 or 500. It will be worth it in 1,000 years, the same way it was worth it now for all of our ancestors to do all of that work now. So we got here. Okay. So it will never happen. It's not for us. We're not doing it for us. We're doing it for the future. But see, people aren't thinking about the future. That's why I think billionaires are so interesting, right? Because they don't look to the future in that particular way. And I think that's why they're able to sort of suck all of the resources out of the planet and people, because they don't care. Chat says small country theory, though. I personally think the smaller, the easier to hold up, even though it's an unreasonable request. If you want smaller countries, that's what state rights is. And look at the way it's fucking over Americans. Either we're all American or none of us are American. Either we're all American and we have the right to go from state to state without discrimination, or you are advocating for states' rights, which is exactly what's happening right now in the United States, which is why it's so dangerous for people. Because as an American, I shouldn't have to feel in danger state to state. I should feel like my rights carry over. So the fact that if you want to do that, then we have to create a mass migration program to move all of the Americans to the states that best represent them. But then we wouldn't be America. We would literally have to secede, right? Like Trump, Texas, and all of those other states that talk about doing it would have to. But look at what's happened to the UK. Do you want to Brexit America? Because it's not working out for them. I don't think that's what we want to do, because it is not working out. You want larger communities, not smaller ones. Europe is a bunch of small countries, but they are a larger community under the EU. And when you secede, move away from the EU, you lose trade options, economic prosperity, familiar relationships. You lose networking. So we have to be very cautious about this hope, and we can just use other models to see how it goes wrong, right? But yeah, we don't want to Brexit America. I don't think that's the best decision, But, what do I know? I'm living in Croatia, which is a part of the EU, and I'm living under the benefits of the European Union. You know what I mean?
Oh, you said it, not me, but yeah.
While the Beach Bros celebrated, like so many of Trump's actions, this one fell short with some of the fairer sex.
I do not believe that this is the Gulf of America. I believe that it's the Gulf of Mexico. There are way more important issues that we should be focusing on right now.
I can't do neuroscience research. My research funding is gone, and that's really sad.
Okay, that is sad, but can I remind you that that's now called the Gulf of America?
Yeah, that is so wrong.
Of course, in Florida, there are those already proud.
And this is the bubble difference, is Trump can't just go around deciding things willy-nilly. People also learn about these things. They live in things. There's documents, government documents being impacted. This man has no consideration for how his actions are going to impact millions of people's lives. He just thinks well, figure it out. Figure it out. I have to. You never had to figure out anything in your life, girl.
Proudly sporting a uniform. So I spoke with a few members of the Tampa Bay Young Republicans. The name change to Gulf of America, is that important?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think everyone has a generational shift. You had the baby boomers, they went through the World War II, they had their thing. I think our generation, the big thing is having our stamp on the world is okay.
So the greatest generation took Normandy, and this generation took the Gulf of America. Yes, sir. But before I start imagining these young MAGA soldiers storming the shores of Clearwater with canteens full of sex on the beach, I needed to know, what are their actual core values?
We want a small government.
Chat says, don't they still have their own governments and laws? It's just open borders for the EU countries. Well, one of the significant things about the EU, from my limited understanding, is, as an example, abortion is considered a human right. So Croatia, though it's a nationalistic Catholic country and gay marriage is banned, what isn't banned is abortion. So because from my limited understanding, I could be very wrong here, from what I've understood, under the EU, you know, it is considered a basic civil right. Like you do have to have a certain amount of like basic civil agreement about like what is a civil right. So I think from my very limited understanding, that is an example of something that is found in throughout. And then there's like a requirement you have to have. So I think that of conduct. So I think that that's the kind of the good thing, right? I think states can be similar. We have the federal law and then we have states laws, but that's why, you know, the idea of banning gay marriage federally or legalizing it federally was such a threat to all of us, is like, it shouldn't have to be state to state in that regard. Yeah. Okay. Chat says the EU has a regulatory body. Okay. Good. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm still so new to this like country and this bubble, and I'm still learning everything. So I could be wrong on some things, but that's my understanding.
Oversight. We want strong economy,
strong families, and love for the nation.
We're kind of just pushing towards a world where those different things, such as men being women in different sports. You see girls are getting injured all the time in high school sports and all that.
So when it comes to women's sports, you're approaching this from like, we need to respect women.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, in a lot of senses, it seems like women are being kind of deleted.
So you guys recently invited Andrew Tate to come and speak to your group.
You know what I'm saying? I respect women. Let's get Andrew Tate in the building. It's like, maybe not.
We said we'd be open for it.
The Tampa Bay Young Republicans made national news when they formally invited Andrew Tate to speak to their group. This Andrew Tate, the former kickboxer turned influencer accused of assaulting and choking his girlfriend in California and on trial in Romania for alleged sex trafficking.
If a woman is going out with a man, she belongs to that man. That's his woman. So if she wants to do OnlyFans, she owes him some money because she's his.
What discussion did you want with Andrew Tate?
So it's not really a discussion we want with him. We just want to get different opinions out there, and then we talk to obviously clicks.
100%. I mean, the more people that are looking at us at Tampa Bay Young Republicans and also seeing the kind of conversations that we do have, the better it is for our organization.
But they're looking at you because you invited an alleged human trafficker. Were Jake and Logan Paul too likable for an invite?
They're not likable.
No. So like, what was the conversation you wanted to have with Andrew Tate?
I don't want to sit here and give someone that has inappropriate values a platform.
Not your goal. You're just like, let's give Andrew Tate a platform. Tell me about choking a bitch. Should I go from behind or should I approach from the front?
It's not like we're here supporting any of that gross rhetoric. That's not something.
But you understand, you are.
Most of the members said that they did not want Andrew Tate on. Sure. So then he never came on. So it's it seems kind of weird that
Okay, first of all, props to the bubble for being like, I don't want Andrew Tate on. I like that. I know, like, we make fun of Jordan Peterson a lot here, which is earned. But even Jordan Peterson is not an Andrew Tate fan, right? So, okay, props to the bubble for, like, being like, we don't want Andrew here, and for them not bringing him on because they were mad. Okay.
You're on here just kind of pressing us about Andrew Tate when the majority of Tampa Bay Young Republicans said, hey, we don't want him here, and then he never came on. That would have been for attention to spark discourse, but it didn't happen.
Here's the deal. You're in the discourse now. You utilize his name and fame to grab attention towards the Tampa Bay Young Republicans, and now here we are in it, and it feels as if you want to distance yourself from it, which to me feels a lot like the MAGA movement.
It was an Instagram post that said, do you guys want Andrew Tate here?
That's not what it said. No, that's not what it said, right? It said, we formally invite him to speak to our group.
We want to see what's going on. Like, hey, why are you coming here? Are you expecting to do the same thing here? Is it, hey, we know we can get away with stuff? What's the reason he thinks he can come here?
Because there's people here who want clicks so badly that they'll be like, come and talk to us.
I mean, everyone likes clicks. Everyone likes their 30 seconds of fame, you know?
Any regrets about inviting Andrew Tate?
You know the saying, any publicity is good publicity?
Yeah,
that's not true.
No.
Have you planned your Roman Polanski Film Festival yet?
Not at this point. It'd be interesting to see who our next controversial speaker is.
The opportunity is going to continue to.
And by the way, do you guys remember when all the controversial Republicans were speaking on college campuses like Milo Yiannopoulos and Ben Shapiro and stuff? I have to remember, and I've seen Hassan and other people have spoken at college campuses, but that is also interesting. Like, these people are invited to come by the school's Republican club or something else, something adjacent, right? Chet says, not the Roman Polanski joke. I wonder if they even got the joke. Like, that's the thing. Sometimes I was on a podcast and I was making these jokes, and then I laughed with the host that I was like, do Gen Zers even get the jokes I'm making? Like, because I forget like who's listening, you know? RL with the super chat says, I heard from Gay Velment. Who's Gay Velment? That the Gulf of Mexico rename so he can drill, baby drill. The rules apply to the Gulf of Mexico, not Go America, Geo America. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Thank you for the super chat. Interesting.
Present themselves, but if R. Kelly gets out of jail, a little bit of advice, don't head him up.
Not it.
These guys are struggling because they got pulled into the MAGA game of racing for clicks. But unlike the President of the United States, they still have a nagging sense of morality. So you guys still are anti-human trafficking?
100%.
100%. In fact, most of the people we talked to were kids with good intentions, looking for a path, but were given a playbook by popular, wealthy, right-wing influencers. So how does the left compete in this space? Is there a Joe?
Chat says, Andrew Tate is an Islam sympathizer, right? I think he's not Islam sympathizer. I think he is Muslim. I think he pretends to be Muslim. I'm going to say pretends to be, but I think he's a convert. I think he's considered a revert or a convert. I forget how Muslims say it, but he's pretending he's a Muslim.
Rogan on the left.
Oh, God.
After the break. The space is for young people, both physically.
Oh, chat says Gay Valment was the Democrat who ran for a special election in one of the Florida districts in early April. Oh, okay, thank you.
And online are dominated by right-wing personalities. The Tates, the Kirks, the Whites are all present in a way that the left just isn't.
It's gotten to the point where the left has absolutely no relationship with this audience, period.
Oh, wait, chat is saying maybe that's why the people wouldn't also want to claim him. Oh, like you're saying maybe the Christian Republicans don't want to claim him because he's a Muslim more than he is a sex trafficker? Ooh, maybe.
What if they try, I don't know, sponsorships? UFC 315, sponsored by Planned Parenthood?
I think that's a mistake. There's just the young men are being radicalized through this process, and it's like that can't,
Oh, okay, this is Luke Thomas. He's a journalist.
that can't be the answer. Don't just look around and be like, well, this is a terrible problem and it seems intractable. I guess I'll just walk away and I'll see what happens later. Dude, bad shit will happen if you do that.
Democrats, get in the fucking ring.
Get in the fucking ring, you bitches.
One person who is in the ring is...
Okay, wait, let's look at this setup. So we've got the camera here and 3 monitors here. See, his setup is better than my setup. I really got to work on my setup because I've got a big light right here, which blocks my monitors, and I always got to like move around. So I got to get the light up here, but how do I do that? See, this is really the important part of this video is Hasan Piker's setup. And please note, because I did watch this segment ahead of time, please note how not cute his setup, which makes me feel so much better because this side of the screen, so cute. This side of the screen, not cute. And it made me feel so much better. Because genuinely, it is so difficult to feel like my desk isn't always just full of wires. But look at Hasan's setup when they zoom out. Also, oh my God, these fucking boys. Look at the nicotine all over his desk. Look at this man's nicotine. Holy shit. See, they use energy drinks and nicotine to get through stream. Guys, I just need to drug myself. That's how I'll do it. Because I'm always like, how do you guys not burn out after 4 to 5 hours of streaming? They're on fucking nicotine. I gotta get on that teen. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get on that nicotine.
Hasan Piker. Piker has 2.8 million followers on the streaming platform Twitch. He manages to work out like a bro and have intellectual sit-downs with Bernie and AOC. All this has liberal media asking if he is the connection to the youth. I'll follow you on Instagram and see you talk.
Wait, look at this setup. Oh, this makes me feel so much better about my setup. This is exactly what our life looks like. It's just wires and lights, and it's so exhausting. And so I really appreciate him showing this angle because it's not cute, but it's so real. It's just so real.
This has liberal media asking if he is the connection to the youth. I'll follow you on Instagram and see you
And by the way, I have heard that nicotine is helpful for ADHD people, but I don't know.
talking about what's happening in the news, but also see you working out. Like you also are communicating to people through working out.
Yeah, through grunts.
How do you see the left communicating with like young men in this time of the man?
Also, I'm being sarcastic, guys. I'm never gonna get into nicotine like that. Thank you. Just FYI, it's a joke. Like I'm not gonna get into energy drinks just to stream longer. Like I'm not that girl.
The left could, I don't know, talk to dudes without vilifying them. There's a lot of anger, resentment, not having any hope for a future, never being able to retire, never being able to own a home. All of those things are very much at the core identity for the next generation.
The left needs to face the fact that for the youth of America, what is appealing is not a moral superiority, but it's fun shit like swords, anime, and taking down the billionaire class.
I represent.
Hold on.
But it's fun shit like swords.
Okay, hold on. Is any of these the bleach sword? Did he cover it? Is the Luffy hat covering the bleach sword? I'm just, okay, no?
Anime and taking down the billionaire class.
I represent the feelings and opinions of a lot of people that are just like, you can have fun. It's okay to have fun.
How do you balance being a mature adult and also...
Chad says, please go on the Sam Cedar show. Me? Talk to Daddy Sam Cedar? My audience might get pregnant just watching it happen. I have nothing to contribute to the bubble because I'm not in politics, but shout out to Sam Cedar and the Majority Report.
So embrace anime boobs.
Anime boobs. Let's go.
Anime boobs are awesome.
Is that sort of the line that the left needs to walk?
Yeah, I think people should get healthcare, and also I like watching anime. Sometimes it has boobs in it, and that's cool.
This is very confusing. How is Cory Booker supposed to navigate this? The Democrats are never going to reach out to a younger generation if they have to understand these nuances.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong.
I mean, at least Cory Booker is plant-based or vegan, but also did nothing to really stop the genocide. So...
In the end, young people just want what everybody wants, leaders who connect with them. That's the good news. The bad news is there's a lot of these guys lurking out there. So while the left searches for ways to reach out to the voters they lost, I'll do my best to bring peace and harmony.
Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We got to take this on tour. I was
going to say, do you know any Woody Guthrie?
No.
Great video. Love Jordan Klepper. Great vid. Shout out to Hassan. And shout out to the other YouTubers that I saw on this because that's pretty cool. We love to see it. Hey, YouTube is the new media, girls. It is what it is. People watch YouTubers like people used to listen to talk radio, right? I come from that bubble. Okay, appreciate that video. Really well done. And hope you guys enjoyed it. Okay, let's move on. Oh, Lord. Get ready. This story is crazy, but necessary. So let's talk about it. Let's see. How do I do this? Okay. So I don't know if you guys have seen this story. It says case of a brain dead pregnant woman kept on life support in Georgia raises tricky questions. Please note they do not say her name. And I've noticed throughout the stories, they've neglected to say her name because no one's associating the issue with her name like we did with like a George Floyd or a Tamir Rice. And I think we should start saying her name, right? So I have it here in my title, Adriana Smith, real person, real mother, real nurse, real contributor to society, real daughter, somebody's girlfriend, somebody's like, she's a real person. She's not a made up, like she's not fiction. And she is a real person who really died and is being kept alive, brain dead, with a baby growing inside of her, a fetus growing inside of her, because of the heartbeat law in Georgia. So just remember, right? Like she is a real person. She did exist. She had a whole life that, and she was planning for a future life. She was pregnant. She had a family. She was making more of a family. So, she's a real person. And I think, what's sad is like when you read the story, her picture isn't even the first part of this AP story, right? You have to scroll, right? Look at this. Where is her picture? Wait, is her picture? Oh, her picture's not even in the article. Oh my God, I didn't even realize. That's so dehumanizing. That's so effed up. Her picture's not even in this whole ass article. My bad. See how horrible this is? Oh my God. I'm shocked, real time shocked, bros. But this is what I mean to say. How dehumanizing to this woman who truly did exist, right? So let's skip to the video because they will show you her picture and we'll get a deeper insight into this story. We're going to watch 2 videos with interviews by her mother that I think helps us really understand this story.
New developments right now in the case of a pregnant woman being kept alive.
Look at her. Beautiful, real person, existed, no longer exists, but her baby is technically in middle of developing and they're hoping the baby makes it to term and they're going to deliver the baby via C-section. But right now it's not looking good for her or the baby. And her family is in a deep mourning process. But keep in mind, this is like a really scary precedent to set. And it would be different if Adriana, before she passed, Adriana Smith, before she passed, she had said, keep me alive, even if, right, that would have been her right. But because we don't know that, it's really difficult that the family doesn't have a choice. So again, I support educating our population to say before these things happen, have it in your will or in some sort of documentation or in some sort of proof that maybe this is your wish, but what if it's not your wish, right? Okay.
On life support, 11 Alive first told you about Adriana Smith last week. She went to the hospital 8 weeks into her pregnancy, complaining of a headache, and just hours later, doctors declared her brain dead. It's a story that's making headlines all around the globe, sparking debates over Georgia's heartbeat law.
Tonight, our Cody Alcorn spoke exclusively with Smith's mother again about the emotional toll of this pregnancy, and she says the state left them no choice but to continue. He's live now from Emory University Hospital in Midtown. Cody, we know this is a situation that has really been taxing for this family.
It really has, Jennifer and Ron. Adriana was moved here to Emory Midtown on Tuesday. She's expected to remain on life support through August, when doctors plan to deliver her baby.
August, bro. August. I don't even know the science behind this. I'm so uneducated in this regard. Can a baby develop properly over time? Now, you're going to hear from the mother that there's already been complications with the birth, PS. So it's not looking good. But again, you know, there's so much at stake here, more than we could even imagine. But let me let the mother speak for herself.
Baby by C-section. 30-year-old Adriana Smith is 22 weeks pregnant.
But she's not there. She's not there. But the baby's there.
April Newkirk says her daughter was declared brain dead on February 19th. Adriana was 8 weeks pregnant.
We wanted to know if she was to abort, would she have a chance at her life? And they said there was no chance or no hope.
In Georgia, the state's heartbeat law bans abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected.
So at that point, we continued with the pregnancy that we didn't have a choice or a say about. And I just want to be clear on something. We want her to have her baby. We want her life to continue throughout her children. But at the same time, to see her lay there like that, for that length of time, the grieving process for us, it can't even start. Because every time we go, we grieve and we hurt. And it's just unreal. It's unreal for anyone to go through this.
April says they named her daughter's baby Chance.
Because we feel like he's getting a second chance. Listen, I think remember, this woman is under an insane amount of scrutiny. That everyone is calling her heartless for even thinking about aborting the baby. And this plays into that larger conversation we were having around like eugenics and pro-life, pro-choice talk. At the end of the day, these things are all very different and complicated, but it wouldn't be, I think, cruel to have that abortion. But also, I think in some ways she has to be careful about how she talks about it, because if she's under threat, people are watching her and going to scrutinize this mother, you know, harder than anybody else, because she's the face of it right now. And they're going to say that it's, you know, it's interesting that the boyfriend hasn't been interviewed in these two videos I have. He's not in it, but she is. But keep in mind, that's probably because she's in charge of her medical versus the boyfriend who's unmarried, right? But she has to deal with the backlash of people saying, wow, you want to kill your own grandkid? Because these pro-lifers are ruthless. So remember that she is having to be very political in this conversation. Who knows how she's expressing her grief in private? But I think that she's doing the best she can with a very, very difficult situation. And that's really what this is about. How difficult is this situation? We can't even comprehend it, right?
Because to me, he's getting a second chance.
Despite his mom's condition,
the baby is the right weight, a little bit over, which is a good sign. He has his legs, his toes, his limbs. Heartbeat is good and strong. It's just maybe because of the loss of consciousness with my daughter, the lack of oxygen that the baby didn't get. So that's where the cerebellum comes into place.
Baby Chance's future is still uncertain.
So the journey is for baby Chance to survive, and whatever condition God allows him to come here in, we're going to love him just the same, and we're going to embrace him.
I believe that. We'll see in a different interview where she talks about it a little differently. I also think it's okay to be scared that the baby will come out disabled. Not because you're a bad person if you're disabled, but because how scary is it that because of the way your daughter died, you're impacted in womb, and then you come into the world with a dead mother, and you come into the world disabled because of the way that the state operated or didn't care for your mother. Right. And again, I know these conversations are really sensitive, and I don't want disabled people to feel like you're not worthy. That's not the conversation we're having right now. The conversation we're having is that this is a huge, very reasonably emotional situation, and you will never understand the burden of it unless you've been there. And even though I've never been in this situation, I feel like just to try to sympathize or empathize with it would be so important right now, because it is beyond frustrating to be in this situation. Right. And sometimes you've seen TV shows have this sort of conversation. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's an episode of I think it was SVU, where the girl was in a coma and somebody had assaulted her and she got pregnant, and the mom saw this as a miracle. But at the end of the day, like, your daughter didn't consent to making that baby and she was assaulted. And in this situation, thank God it wasn't that, right? But I'm just trying to use it to have a larger contextual conversation. Sometimes I think people value bringing a baby into the universe a little bit too much over the life of the person that's in existence. And I think that we should have larger conversations about that. I don't think it's wrong for you to see the value of that baby or that fetus or that growing energy. I think it's maybe sometimes it takes a wise and sort of a situation where discernment is required for you to make a better decision in the long run, right? James, welcome to Memberships. Happy to have you here.
Adriana does have a 7-year-old son. His name is Chase, and he has no idea what is happening. He still thinks his mom is just asleep.
Ooh! We got to explain it to that baby. Somebody has to sit down with that baby, and we need to explain to that baby that your mom's not coming home. You know, that's really devastating. Like, think about having to explain it to that child. And we have got to sit down. Like, I don't want him at 7 years old to jump on the internet and see his mother's story being talked about. Somebody needs to sit down with that baby before he sees it on the internet, before his friends talk about it, right? He's too old at this point. Somebody needs to sit down with a therapist, or maybe somebody does need to explain it to them. Like, you know, that kid deserves to know if his mom's coming home or not. And I do think this is an experiment. I do think they are testing the bounds. I do think that they are seeing how far they can get, what they can do with our bodies after we die. And I think with what's inside of our bodies, remember that abortion laws, because the word abortion means the expelling of the fetus or things. So like from my understanding, abortion even is applied to stillbirths when the baby is pushed out, basically, or taken out. So we have to be very careful with terminology here, that, you know, we have to be very, I think as laymen who aren't in the law, who aren't medical professionals, we have to be very careful about the way we think we're advocating for policy, because we might be impacting lives that we don't process. Same thing with, trans kids. You might think you're just protecting a trans kid from getting surgery, which never happens, by the way. But what you're not taking into consideration is all the ways those trans kids need gender affirming care that fall under these laws that you are pushing, these policies you are pushing, that end up hurting people in the long run, people you didn't even realize you were hurting. Because it always sounds good when they present it, but when you dig into how it's applied, you have to realize, like, that's why in America we try our hardest to sort of protect free speech or protect certain things, because even though we're unhappy seeing how people utilize it, the consequences might be worse. And so we're always trying to think of that, right?
Now, as you mentioned, this whole case has sparked a conversation. It has sparked debate about the gray areas of the state's heartbeat law. And as reported last week, when I first sat down with April, she believes the heartbeat law needs to be re-examined and changed.
Cody, certainly a very difficult situation all the way around there. Thank you so much for bringing us that update tonight. Meanwhile, in a statement released last week from Georgia's Attorney General Chris Carr, his office said in part, there is nothing in the Life Act that requires medical professionals to keep a woman on life support after brain death. Removing life support is not an action with the purpose to terminate a pregnancy.
That sounds very much like the Catholic loophole about ectopic pregnancies. I think I've told you this before. I asked a priest in my life who is one of the canon lawyers for the church, what is the church's legal standing on ectopic pregnancies? And he said the church gets around it by, let's say the baby is ectopic in the fallopian tube, removing that part of the fallopian tube, which, yes, terminates a woman's ability to make a baby in the future, but allows the woman to survive the ectopic pregnancy while getting rid of the ectopic pregnancy without committing a targeted abortion. So, not my favorite, but hey, so that's kind of what's happening here, is that even though the consequence is the termination of the fetus, what we're really doing is taking this body off life support because this woman deserves to rest. Okay? Like, this woman deserves to rest, right? Okay, now let me show you this next video, which I think is important for context. Same story, different interviewers.
30-year-old Adriana Smith was about 9 weeks pregnant when she started having bad headaches in February.
Enough to know that something was wrong.
April Newkirk says her daughter went to Northside Hospital for help.
They gave her some medication, but they didn't do any tests. They didn't do any CT scans. If they did, they would have caught it.
The next morning, Adriana's boyfriend noticed something was terribly wrong.
She was gasping for air in her sleep, gargling. More than likely, it was blood. She was taken to Emory, Decatur, and then she was transferred here.
To Emory University Hospital, where Adriana worked as an RN. Unfortunately, there was nothing doctors could do.
They did a CT scan and she had blood clots all in her head. So they had asked me if they could do a procedure to relieve them, and I said yes. And then they called me back and they said that they couldn't do it.
Doctors declared Adriana brain dead.
So I feel as if somebody dropped the ball at the hospitals, and her boyfriend asked, please keep her. If she was kept at the hospital, we wouldn't be here.
Because of Georgia's heartbeat bill, which bans abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, her family says they weren't given any say in what happens next.
It's torture for me. I come here and I see my daughter breathing by the ventilator, but she's not there. And I'm touching her. And she has a son who I bring to see her.
Now, 21 weeks pregnant, her baby's health uncertain.
She's pregnant with my grandson, but my grandson may be blind, may not be able to walk, wheelchair bound. We don't know if he'll live once she has him.
A situation she says no one should be forced into.
It should have been left up to the family because I'm in my 50s, her dad is in his 50s, so we're going to have the responsibility with her partner to raise her sons, And I'm not saying that we would have chose to terminate her pregnancy. What I'm saying is we should have had a choice. We should have had a choice.
Thanks for watching.
That's okay. Something so important here is that they should have had a choice. And the fact that they didn't have a choice is the dilemma. And yes, she was a nurse, chat. She was a nurse. They went to the same hospital she worked at, from my understanding, right? They just said that. And the problem is that I think we all downplay our symptoms for a lot of reasons. Like I'm sure like you, like me, like we, there's that meme that my community is always sharing where it's like, you literally are dead and at a funeral and your doctor shows up and goes, your labs came back fine, right? That's like the joke. But the truth is like, we're not as advanced with medicine as we think. We don't have the proper resources and we keep taking money away from research. This administration continues to take money away from literal research that we need. That's why when Trump went up and made it one of his initial speeches after winning the election, he said something about trans mice. Like, oh, they're experimenting on trans mice. They're experimenting on mice, which I know is not vegan, to cure cancer. It's for cancer research. But see how Trump gets there and goes, can you believe they've got money going towards trans mice? And his viewers are like, that's crazy. Wow, that's nuts. These mice were meant for cancer research. So, I know it's not very vegan, but the point is that we need to be aware of how uneducated everybody is, and two, why, again, and stay with me here, sometimes I do ask people like, why are you having a baby in 2025? Not because I don't think you should have a baby, but because I'm wondering if you've asked yourself, are you, engaging in a community that will support you? Are you in a state that will support you when you are medically impaired? Will there be the right resources for you? And have you know what I mean? I'm not saying you shouldn't have a baby. I'm saying, do you know why you're having a baby? Do you know why you're putting yourself in that medical situation? One of my deepest, darkest fears is having my parents in charge of my medical rights or my medical choices. Not because I don't think my parents would make really good choices for a lot of the situations, because I think they would. I've seen them do that. I just think with certain circumstances in relation to pregnancy, I can't trust my parents because they're pro-life. That I'm glad I married into a liberal family who are pro-choice. You know what I mean? So again, I'm not saying don't have a baby. I'm just saying, why are we having a baby? Just so you know why, right? I also, I think this also does play into that larger conversation. And I know it's very sensitive about what we covered on my birthday a while back about the eugenics TikTok trending, right? That this grandma might come under scrutiny for saying that, look, this baby might come out disabled in a way that we didn't prepare for because of malpractice in the hospital. And it's not that we wouldn't love this baby no matter how it came out, because we would. But don't you think that that's something that we should feel a little bit upset about? Am I allowed to feel a little bit upset that this baby who would have come out perfectly healthy in a, whatever perceived way we have is now at risk because of the doctors? Like, can we not hold both emotions at once, please? Where we dignify the life of the disabled and we also mourn the fact that this was so unnecessary, which is, again, the conversation we're trying to have as a larger community around preventative care. Preventative care and agency over your body, right? So again, I'm not saying don't have a baby. I'm not saying disability is bad. I am saying that we have to be more nuanced and wise and use discernment. And when we are engaging and bringing a new consciousness into the universe, that of all the things you should be, more prepared about, should probably be about bringing a consciousness into the universe. Not that you will, and I radically accept that most people will not do their due diligence, and I don't think you're bad. I think you're very human, and humans are going to human. I just think it's very human for us not to think about what it means to really make a baby, especially in a world that has given you a script about why you should be making a baby. Right? So I encourage you to deconstruct that script and to consider what it means to really make a baby in 2025. Not, again, making the prescription that you shouldn't make a baby. I'm just saying you should know why you're making a baby. All right. Next story. I love my Discord. I'll go ahead and link one of the news videos in the chat so you guys can see it. Wait, before we move on, sorry, I'm moving so quickly here. I'm jazzed up today, girls. Any thoughts on that? Chad says, I think the vast majority of us come into this world with naive parents who didn't consider as deeply. Of course, which is why in some ways you have to be forgiving to society, because I think it's a majority default setting, right? I do. I just think it's a majority default setting that we just make babies. We fuck, we make babies. We're horny, we make babies. I don't think people are thinking about it, right? I don't think human beings are thinking about it. And then we have to take into consideration rape and assault, of course, right? And I want to say I'm not anti-baby, for the record. I love babies. I think kids are great. I think they're greater than any adult in the planet. Babies and children are the best, and adults suck. Like, I would rather have a world of babies who are adorable and learning and neutral and great than a world of shitty adults. You know what I mean? Like, babies are great. I'm not anti-baby. I just want to make that abundantly clear, right? I am just... Yeah, I don't think like babies are gross or annoying. I don't care if you have a baby. Like, babies who cry in public don't bother me. I mean, autistically they might bother me, but person to person, they don't bother me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't care about people having babies. I just care about the quality of life that baby's gonna have, right? Okay. Somebody needs to do it. This is Taylor Lorenz. I've been watching her channel for a while now, but I don't know much about her yet. I'm still learning. And my Discord asked me to review this video, and I was like, joke's on you, Discord. I already have it in my shared list or my watch list for today. So great minds think alike. Oh my God, my lights keep turning off. We're having a tech day today, girls. We're having a tech day. So let's go ahead and give it a watch, because I think it would be interesting. I got to figure out what's going on there. Tech issues are happening. It's because I messed with my wires earlier and I shouldn't have done that, but I did do it. And so now my lights are turning off. Okay. Chad says, did she have beef with H3? Did she? Did she? Chet says, would you ever review the Tim Dillon and Elle King interview on CNN? Did that just happen? I just added, yeah, that is that the CNN video? Yeah, I just Elle Reeves, Elle Reeve, you mean, not Elle King. I just added that to my watch list because I wondered how Tim Dillon was doing. I left because Tim Dillon was pissing me off. But all men who are MAGA piss me off. So we could watch that tomorrow. I was going to watch it on my own, but if you guys want to watch it, I'll watch it with you guys. Okay, somebody needs to do it. It's actually a theme I see on TikTok a lot, and it's my least favorite. I actually hate it, and I think it's really ugly. P.S. Saying things like somebody should just do it, like somebody's got to do it. Do you guys know what that means? Like somebody needs to do it. Just do it. There's actually this phenomenon. I wish I had prepared better, but there is a psychological phenomenon where human beings with enough social context know exactly what this person means when they say it. So without any context, when somebody gets on TikTok and looks at the camera and goes, somebody's got to do it. Somebody do it. Come on, somebody do it. I know what they mean, right? Because I have enough of the social context and I hate it. I think it's really, really gross. I think it's just like philosophically really, really gross, right? I understand why you're saying it, but I think it's really, really gross. So let's listen to Taylor talk about it today because I think it will be interesting.
All across the internet, thousands and thousands of people are making the same plea.
Yo, can somebody just do it? Can somebody, anybody, just do it?
Somebody's got to do it. There has to be somebody out there.
How's the volume?
Do it.
Who's going to take the initiative to do it? We all know it needs to be done, and somebody needs to do it.
If someone does it before the summertime, it's going to be like that one summer when everyone was playing Pokemon Go and everyone was a friend.
Got to do it for the good of everybody.
Do it, please. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
And somebody should. Nobody.
Girl, I'm going to get copyrighted on this video already.
Should.
I 100% dare you to name one thing that you hope happens in 2025.
Yeah, see, I've blocked every person who's made this joke. I've on TikTok. I know this person's face too. I've blocked every person who's made this joke on TikTok. I'm sorry. I'm too peaceful as a person. I'm in a good place in my life. I don't wish death on anybody. Not even the worst person. Because like, it's not the vibe, girls. It's not the vibe. See, but I think they're trying to be funny, but I think they're actually just gross. I would never date this person. If a person was making this joke on a date, I'd be like, hi, are you a psychopath? I'm sorry, but it is kind of crazy to wish death on people. Like you are unhealed. Like there is some part of you that is dangerous. And I know it's the norm, but I think the norm is kind of dangerous. I think normal people are dangerous.
On X, TikTok, Instagram, and in comment sections all over, people are begging.
Chat said it's Trump though, but it's not Trump though, is it? It's not about Trump, is it? You think it's just about Trump, but it's not. It's about their character. Because you think it's okay if it's somebody like Trump, but it's your character that's in question now. Because you're justifying it because it's somebody bad, right? Where have we seen people do this before? Where you justify it because it's bad people. And that never hurts good people, does it? It never hurts good people. I'm being sarcastic. In the long run, when we get to pick and choose who gets to have it, right? Who deserves it? Yeah. Chat says it's a joke. I don't know if you mean like sarcastically, but just a reminder that rape jokes are also just jokes. Homophobia is just a joke. Hey, the N-word is just a joke until it's not. Slurs are just jokes until they're not. Like jokes are funny, but be careful who you say them in front of because the person listening might not know it's a joke. Right? So you can have your opinions, but you are as ugly as the people that you claim you want to dismantle, and you don't even know it yet because you're only looking at it within that bubble framework. But I get it. Humans are going to human, and humans are violent, and you are just not the exception. So
pleading for someone out there to just
and by the way,
please,
I'm not the exception either. I just try to pick and choose my choice of violence with wisdom. Watch my latest podcast, read Tao Te Ching. Violence should always be the last resort choice. last resort.
Subject is never stated, the action is never spelled out, but somehow we all know exactly what's being said.
Volume
But
okay
in case
here?
you are somehow still in the dark, these memes are about unaliving Trump. And sorry to say it in very dumb algo speak terms, but I don't want this video to get taken down from YouTube. What we're witnessing is not just an absurd or ironic online trend. It's something much, much deeper. We are living in a political tinderbox. Trump is back in power, enacting policies that undermine civil liberties, environmental protections, and our economy. Elon Musk is gutting the federal government while billionaires rub us blind. Institutions that were built to serve as guardrails are bending and breaking, while Democrats are not even symbolically resisting. The courts are caving, the press is depleted, and the idea of accountability feels like a joke. Dissent is being criminalized, speech is being surveilled, and legal U.S. residents are literally being deported for thought crimes. These memes are symbols of a society teetering on the edge. Memes have always reflected cultural.
That's correct. I think Luigi is a very bad sign. When I see Luigi do what he did, I go, ooh, we're in a bad place. This is a bad sign. People think this is a good sign, but I think this is obviously, and I think most of you would agree, this is a bad sign. We have gotten so far in the badness that Luigi had to happen. This is not good. Yes, Luigi is a symptom. I agree. Yeah, Luigi is a bad omen. This is very bad. This is Voldemort omen in the sky. Like, we are going to the bad place together. You know? Chad says, I think Luigi would think he's a bad sign too. Sure. And I don't think Luigi had enough free will to engage in another option, by the way. I think Luigi did exactly what he thought was the right decision, which is why I say the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Right? So I don't think Luigi could have I don't think Luigi sat and meditated on his decision. I think he made the decision he thought was right within his bubble. And I'm saying it is a bad sign. This is a bad sign. This is not good.
Moods, but these posts are about something more than that. They tap into this belief that the system is beyond repair and that nothing short of a seismic, violent shift will change the direction that we're heading in. In this video, I'm going to attempt to dissect this belief and unpack exactly what led us here. I'm not going to get into whether these memes and posts are moral, legal, or even advisable, but what I want you to understand is where these memes are coming from and what they say about the cultural and political moment that we're currently living in. Because these memes are not just about unaliving Trump. They are about collective trauma, political cynicism, our decaying faith in democratic institutions, and so much more. To start, I want to talk about exactly how and when millions of people lost faith in the system. This was not an overnight phenomenon. There were pivotal events over the past few years that pushed people to this moment. And I don't think that you can look
pushed people. If you are doing things out of fear, it's probably the wrong decision. If you're doing it because you're desperate, probably a bad decision, y'all. You're pushed into a corner, so you're pushed into the situation. We're probably not making good, sound, wise decisions. We're probably making the wrong decision. I'm not saying you're wrong for being pushed into a corner. I'm saying that we need to pause and wait. If you can, if you have any chance, any connection to your free will, make a different decision. If you don't have access, hey, it is what it is. You know, I don't think people have as much free will as they think they do, right? So we have to be careful, you know? Chet says, isn't that how change happened throughout history? Depend on which history, depends on who you mean. It depends on what that looks like. Hitler also thought he was defending Germany against the Jews by exterminating them. So be careful when you advocate for political violence. January 6th also thinks they were saving America from fascists, right? Be careful what you think is political violence. Not all political violence is the same. Some of it can be the only decision to be made, and some of it is made too quickly. So you have to discern which political violence is actually for the good and which political violence is because you're pushed into a corner.
The someone should do it memes without examining the major cultural and political turning points that we've recently lived through. To begin with, we have to go back to March 2020 when COVID hit. And before you tune out, because I said the word COVID, listen to me. The year 2020 is actually a time in history that the entire US government, the mainstream media, and pretty much everyone in power has spent billions and billions of dollars waging a massive propaganda war to try to make you forget. And that propaganda campaign has worked on a lot of you because the period in time that most of America has memory hold was actually pretty revolutionary. In the early months of spring 2020, when COVID began to spread, the US witnessed a momentary glimpse into a more equitable.
Chat says, but does any political violence happen without people being pushed into a corner? Some political violence happens after being pushed into a corner. A person ponders, waits, makes a decision. There's nothing inherently wrong about political violence. There is something inherently wrong about thinking violence is the only answer. And I think this is different. If you have a leader who sits and ponders and waits, who makes the decision to choose violence because it is now the only decision, then they're not making the decision out of a reactionary moment. They're making it as a choice. It's not reactionary, it's a decision. So we want people to make decisions. We don't want people to be reactionary. That's all I'm saying is like, make sure you're not reacting and make sure you're making a cognizant decision.
Society. The entire US government was taking care of its people in ways that it hadn't before.
And I understand we're biological creatures, animals evolved over millions of years, and it is asking a big thing to say, like, make this decision because you're making it and not because you feel like you're reacting to it alone.
The US government has spent so many years since blasting the public with propaganda that a lot of people today have forgotten just how revolutionary 2020 was. Policies that we were always told were absolutely impossible in America suddenly came to fruition. I want to go through a few notable ones. There was the CARES Act enacted in March 2020, which provided direct financial assistance to struggling workers by extending unemployment benefits and offering an additional $600 per week. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which also passed in 2020, mandated paid sick leave and increased funding for food assistance programs, lifting countless people out of poverty. On a state level in 2020, states like New Mexico began offering free childcare, a policy that lifted approximately 120,000 people above the poverty line. The state even began taking budget surplus directly from oil and gas revenue to fund early childhood education. This stuff was so progressive, I actually can't even imagine it happening now, which is again because of the downstream effects of all of this propaganda trying to make us forget this stuff. Other states, including Connecticut, implemented universal free school meal programs, ensuring that all students had access to hot, nutritious meals, regardless of income, for the first time. These policies and dozens more resulted in a significant reduction of food insecurity across America. In 2020, SNAP benefits were increased and helped feed over 15.
Chet said that would be ideal in a perfect world, but even the time to make decisions versus reacting reflects stability and peace in someone's life. Gaza's people, for example, don't have the luxury of choice. Two things. Most people around the world don't have that choice, even when they look like they're peaceful. I am making a larger argumentation. If you guys have followed my work long enough, I don't think 99% of the population has that choice. I don't care if you're in California living in a luxury condo or if you're in Gaza. I would argue most of us think we're making choices when we're not. I think most people are just reacting. And I think I remember when I was in my level system of introspection, I remember when I was a 3 and I was like, oh my God, are we all just like reacting to reactions? Are we even making decisions? And I was like, I figured it out. We're all just reacting. Okay, I'm going to stop being a person who just like reacts to the reaction. I felt like so out of control of my life. I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not even making a decision. I'm just reacting to the thing in front of me. Wait, what does Brittany want? And I thought I figured it out. And I was like, nope, I was still years away. I was stages away from figuring it out in a real comprehensive way. And then I realized like, okay, regardless of the situation we're in, somebody somewhere is not reacting. Like somebody somewhere is not simply reacting. And yet we're limited by our biological relationship with self. So even now with my understanding of what's happening, I can tell the difference between like, I'm sorry, I'm having a biological moment. Like I can't seem to change the way that I feel in this moment. So let me sit down and wait for it. I can't introspect my way out of this biological experience. So give me a second. I can't introspect my way out of my period cramps. Give me a second. And then what I'm doing is I'm accepting the limitations of my own consciousness to have a different relationship with my biological experience, input or output. And then I'm recontextualizing, at least that I can name it, place it, and categorize it, which allows me to have a different perceptual relationship with the thing like period cramps, right? So though the majority of Palestinians won't be able to do this, somebody somewhere can do it in Palestine. And those are the people we should be making leaders. Those are the people we should be relying on for wisdom, are the people who can do it, even though the rest of us can't. And we accept that those leaders will have moments where they can't in their own life do it, right? My hope for humanity is that we accept, though I'm not attached to this outcome, that we accept that first we are biological creatures on a planet that are having a reactionary relationship with most of our life until we decide to have a deeper one, a more profound one. We don't have to. It's not necessary. You will die and no one will remember you and all of society will keep moving forward. But if you would like to participate in harm reduction and changing of the world, then I recommend you start with recognizing that this is a universal biological experience of a human being and that it takes a gathering of the tools to deconstruct this biological default setting and to have a better relationship with self. So you can make different choices that are less reactionary and more choice, right? More actual choice, what people confuse for free will. See, conservatives think everyone has free will all the time, and it's obvious we don't, which is why if you read Determined, Sapolsky's book, Robert Sapolsky, you'll recognize that he's making an argument to be more compassionate because we don't have the choices we think we have, and yet to create a world where people can be held accountable, but not in a punishment or shame way, but actually in a constructive way to deal with the limitations of what it means to simply be a person, right? Chet says, do you think you needed therapy to gain those tools, or can we gain them on our own? Nobody gains anything on our own. So first, you must also accept that you are never doing anything alone. That everything you know about life came from somebody else. Everything you know about yourself came with language somebody else gave you. Everything you do is a collective creation from every person that ever existed before you. So you never, ever do anything on your own, first and foremost. What you do on your own, what looks like on your own, is utilizing the tool somebody else created, and you can create a new tool using their tool. Like when people accuse me of like stealing somebody else's level system, because they're like, this sounds like so-and-so's levels. Everything we've created is somebody else's creation, including the earth itself. You know, a beaver building the dam and us looking at the beaver and saying like, shit, we should do that. That's us taking the blueprint of a beaver's life and making it our own. We are the beaver. You like, just, you know what I mean? So when we do something, we're not doing it ever on our own, but I understand the feeling feels like we're on our own. I feel like I'm independently doing stuff all the time, right? I feel like, oh, this is Britney made, but it's never really Britney made. It's always people made. And I just, you know, I'm just paying more attention to it or making it, quote, my thing, but it's never really ever our thing. So therapy is a tool that may or may not work for your brain, but I think the right therapist and the right tool helps you figure out, and this is about being a whole human being, your mental health. Your mental health is your psychological help. You will never be smarter than an actually good psychologist when it comes to your mental health, but you might have more insight into how your brain works better than a bad psychologist or a bad therapist. So medical health, psychological health, that's your functionality of your brain, your processor and your computer. Then there's your consciousness, and then there's your body. So our body's having a different experience than my brain, than my consciousness, because these things are separate and yet all together. Much like your organs are all operating differently and doing different things, and yet it's all one thing. You know, that's how I look at the person. So going to therapy helps you seek specialized care for a specialized part of your body, your consciousness, your being, which is like your brain, and understanding and categorizing things accordingly. Does that make sense? Chad says, do you think America is on the verge of a race war between white and black people? I do not. I do not. No, I think that is propaganda. I think racism has always been here. It will always be here. And I do not think currently we are on the verge of that. I do think there will always be pockets of violence because of race issues, but I do not think America as a whole is about to go fight our neighbors. No, I think America as a whole is like, I'm not going to do that. No, I think most Americans are actually like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Gen Zers, they're like, no, I'm not going to go do that. Gen Zers have pretty diverse friend groups, and like, they're not about to be out here fighting people. Like, no. I actually don't think that. I think that is propaganda to keep us angry. I think most people are racist, but I don't think most people are interested in killing their neighbor. You know? So racism is always going to be here, but I really don't think that's what it's going to do. You know, what's going to happen. Chet says, I think when you say your own, it means that you're being proactive to see the information for the change or whatever you're seeking, right? When we say we do things on our own, what I'm trying to say is like, but by the sentence structure of that sentence that I got, the question, should I do therapy or can we do it on our own? Can you cure your cancer on your own? I don't know. Maybe if you're really exceptional, but most of the time we need to go to a doctor. Like, we don't cure cancer on our own. We don't cure our schizophrenia on our own. We never do anything on our own because we're usually reading books or researching. So yes, you have to take the initiative, but you can't cure your cancer on your own typically. And you should assume you are not the exception. I assume every day. Once I stopped assuming I was the exception to the rule, my life got better. Because when I was younger and arrogant, I used to think I was the exception. And when I realized I wasn't, it allowed me to actually get things fixed, because I went to a therapist for help. I went to doctors. I went to people who dedicated their life to this thing to help me with this thing that I have not dedicated my life to. No matter how autistic I am or special interesty I am, I will never know more than a person who went through medical school. I will never know more than a good doctor who went through medical school. I will never know more than a person who has dedicated their life to actually knowing what they're talking about versus a person who pretends they know what they're talking about. You know? So that's what I mean. You have to take the initiative. But the reason we work with people is so somebody's there to hold us accountable when we're wrong. Right? We need peer-reviewed papers. Why do doctors need peer-reviewed studies? So they can be called out on their bullshit. Okay? So when I think of therapy, I'm thinking about medical board therapy. If you're thinking about different forms of therapy that don't require a medical license, I'm not talking about that. So when I get asked, did you go to therapy? I went to a medically licensed therapist, somebody who has a board and is responsible to somebody higher than themselves. If you're going to, a rando therapist who's doing rando types of therapy, that's fine. But that's not what I'm talking about. When I'm asked that question, that's what I assume you're asking me about. Right? Okay.
Million young people. From 2020 to 2021, the expansion of food programs across the US resulted in 2.4 million households no longer being food insecure. I can't explain how life-changing this stuff was for millions and millions of people in America. And people weren't just being fed. Millions were also suddenly able to get healthcare in 2020. The government made it easier than ever to enroll in Medicare and Medicaid, which resulted in millions of people who had been previously unable to afford health insurance suddenly able to get care. The government invested $145 million in expanding telehealth services, meaning millions of disabled and housebound people could finally access care, some for the first time in decades. In 2020, housing insecurity plummeted thanks to federal policies like the Treasury Department's ERA program, which provided over $46 billion to support housing stability for renters. There was a nationwide eviction moratorium, and the government rolled out a suite of tenant protections. California, actually, where I live, helped thousands of previously unhoused people gain access to permanent housing. I don't want to go on too much, but these are just a sliver of the policies that we saw the government enact during the early days of the pandemic. And they showed everyone in America, for the first time ever, what was actually possible if we allocated just a fraction of the billions and billions of dollars that we spend on the military and things like tax cuts for the rich towards the public good. I just want to talk about 2020 a tiny bit more for a couple minutes because, again, there's this multi-billion-dollar propaganda campaign to try to make you forget all of this stuff. And it's really important to remember what happened that year if you want to understand why we are where.
And by the way, chat, okay, because I don't know if you're just saying this as a point when you said my licensed therapist forgot they had me on a schedule, had a mentee be and dropped her. Mind you, I work for a company too. I don't know what that's in regards to, but it just made me think of, I'm not saying, because some people believe this, that like all therapists are good therapists. Therapists are just people. They cheat, they're racist, they kill people, they rape people. Being a medical therapist doesn't make you a good person. So I just want to make it clear that when I say go see a professional, I'm saying also go see a good professional, a person who's serious about helping their clients. Not just a person who has a degree, not just a person who happens to be a therapist. Yeah, I know a lot of bubbles like to think that a title makes you a good person. Like, right? But like lots of therapists are also just bad people. So just, okay, find a good person who happens to be a therapist who cares about their business, who cares about helping their clients and can do it in a human way. And remember, they're just people. Okay, yes, get a second opinion. I fired my first therapist until I got my second therapist. My first therapist sucked. She was bad at her job. I was obviously just a paycheck to her. My second therapist, amazing. To be fair, my first therapist was a talk therapist, like a just talk to me about your feelings therapist. And my second therapist was a DBT therapist. And I actually think that was much better for me.
We are today. In 2020, as millions of people shifted to remote work or faced unemployment, they began to question traditional structures of labor and productivity. People started to realize that the economy could function differently and that it could prioritize human well-being over relentless productivity. These mass realizations sparked widespread discussions about systemic inequality and the role of the government in addressing it. Mutual aid networks flourished throughout 2020. Communities organized to provide each other with food, medical supplies, and support. We were all encouraged to mask and protect each other from airborne disease, not just kill our neighbors and service workers with unmitigated COVID spread. These grassroots efforts exemplified the potential for collective action and solidarity. In 2020, we also saw the rise of the nature is healing meme, which spoke to the environmental impact humans were having on our planet. As skies cleared with fewer people commuting to their offices, carbon emissions dropped, and many wondered out loud, what if we didn't go back to normal? What if normal was the problem? Climate disasters, from wildfires in California to hurricanes devastating Central America, reminded us all how urgent the climate crisis had become. The climate movement gained momentum in 2020 as people started to argue that the economy should be restructured to be both greener and fairer. As everyone became extremely online, people began to leverage the internet as a powerful social justice tool. TikTok became a tool for IRL organizing and protest planning. Masses of people began connecting with each other online and building support networks. Suddenly, people realized that the internet could be a weapon against elite systems. The online world became the default reality overnight, and people leveraged social platforms to speak truth to power. The murder of George Floyd in May 2020 served as a catalyst for nationwide protests against racial injustice and police brutality. Millions participated in demonstrations demanding accountability and systemic change. The sheer scale of protests in 2020 reflected a profound shift. In 2020, phrases like white privilege, systemic oppression, and defund the police entered the mainstream. Institutions from corporations to universities rushed to acknowledge.
Wow, that's a good way to get a bubble pop reminder. Entered the mainstream. So for marginalized communities, queer focused communities, people of color community, like people who are working on activism, none of this was new, but it entered the mainstream because they were not using words like this. They were not paying attention. I think Michael Brown was really my introduction into the BLM movement and the way that we kind of understand it today. And so again, we all have our thing in. Like we all have our thing in. We learned the basics in America, but Michael Brown was my first real introduction into like this particular bubble and realizing like, oh, we're late to the party. Like communities have already been working on it. We're just literally late to the conversation because it wasn't part of our conversation growing up, right? So for some people, George Floyd was their first introduction into this conversation. We saw that with Love is Blind, you know?
Their role in perpetuating injustice. A lot of it was performative, but some of it was real. Again, in 2020, for the first time, millions of people began questioning the legitimacy of systems that were long seen as unchangeable. Why is healthcare tied to employment? Why do billionaires exist in a world where children go hungry? Why do we spend more on police and prisons than on schools and housing? 2020 marked a turning point, a realization that the world as it wasn't working for most people, and that another, better world was possible, one where people are valued more than profits. Millions of people began to see clearly what had been hidden in plain sight for decades. Of course, not everyone embraced this moment. The backlash was real and predictable. The term woke was treated like a slur in some circles and a way to dismiss the very real empathy and awareness that defined this era. But the pushback only confirmed that a major power shift was underway. People were finally beginning to seek systemic change, but then the boot came down hard.
I'm really struggling because her camera is crooked, and not to be autistic, but I love that she doesn't play music in her background of her videos. I really love that about her. But girl, if I do not fix this camera, girl.
Was elected that fall and began working overtime to dismantle the social safety net that had expanded in 2020. This is when we saw the beginning of the disenchantment that would ultimately result in these assassination memes. Immediately after taking office, Biden falsely declared the pandemic over in order to force people back to work. Officials began blasting the public with far-right propaganda on COVID, lying to them about the disease, and convincing people to sacrifice their health and their bodies for the stock market. The message was clear. Forget 2020. It's back to work, now with even fewer health protections and no meaningful treatments for the brand new, highly transmissible airborne virus that ravages your heart, neurological system, and immune system, and is still spreading at pandemic levels even today in 2025. Jamie Cohen, a media studies professor at CUNY Queens College, told me, quote, Biden rushed the end of the safety protocols in part because people started to gain a sense of consciousness. Biden and other elite leaders realized the collective power that the public had in 2020, especially online. People were realizing that we too could have the social safety net that many other countries in the world benefit from. And it's a conscious choice by people in power not to let us have it. People on the left and the right also gained clarity about who was really in charge and who controls those levers. But while Biden could force people back to work in unsafe conditions, he couldn't force them to be less online. And by 2021, we were already seeing that there was no longer any distinction between the offline and online worlds. The wall between the two was completely obliterated. And nowhere was this more apparent than at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. As protesters stormed the building that day, they carried flags and wore t-shirts emblazoned with memes like Pepe the Frog and the Kekistan flag, which originated in extremist online subcultures. Reactionary influencers live streamed the insurrection as fans rewarded them with digital gifts and money, depending on how far they made it into the building. This convergence of internet culture and physical action signaled a new era where internet-born ideologies could precipitate real-world upheaval at scale. The insurrection proved without a doubt that the internet's influence extended far beyond screens and could manifest in tangible, often violent actions. The event also marked a moment where a significant portion of the populace began to perceive violence as a viable means to achieve political ends. Surveys conducted around this period revealed that approximately 40% of Republicans and 41% of independents believed that violence against the government could be justified.
Okay. So Republicans also agree to some extent that violence against the government is justified. This is something that the bubbles share, right? The progressive bubble, this bubble, all bubbles believe to some extent that violence is reasonable against the government. But it's interesting how our communities express that violence, right? And again, you know, I'm in the meditation bubble, girl. I'm in the philosophy bubble. So I'm like, what is violence really? Except a missed opportunity for growth. Because once something's dead, y'all, you can't have any chance of growth. But I understand the desire to end something, to kill something, because some forms of violence are necessary. I believe in abortion, as an example. I believe in self-defense, as an example. I think, you know, I eat plants, as an example. Like, it's not that we're afraid of ending a life, but I do think we should be wise in mourning the end of that life, to be grateful that the life that ended led to something better. You know, I've definitely participated in sort of mourning ceremonies for people who have chosen to have abortions, or people who have had miscarriages. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with mourning the life that could have been and still knowing that was the right decision. I don't think there's anything wrong with mourning the life of somebody you had to defend your life, you know, against, you know, having to kill somebody in self-defense. I don't think it's wrong to mourn that life. I think because we're so uncomfortable with death in general, I mean, we're just so afraid of death, we won't have conversations about people dying, period. You know? So we need to first accept that we need to be comfortable with death, that death is reality, so we can be responsible with how we invite death into our life.
Idea that violence is the answer or that violence is necessary for political change is not typical in a functioning democracy. And this was back in 2021. A Pew Research poll at the time showed that the American public's confidence in the government had reached its lowest point in decades. There was a widespread perception by late 2021 that our government was driven almost wholly by self-interest and corruption, leading to distrust in the entire system. Ariel Hassel, assistant professor of communication and media at the University of Michigan, conducted a study at the time that found that cynicism was skyrocketing and pretty much...
Hold on, let me explain something. Chad says, I don't understand what people mean when they say we learned the internet has real life impacts. So in the normie bubble, okay, people who do not center their life around the internet. I'll give you an example. People will say, hey, Britt, I used to really love your videos, but I'm just too busy with real life stuff right now. Hey, Britt, I really love your videos, but man, like I'm working so much. I can only watch like 40 minutes of a video a day, and I got to pick and choose who I watch. How many videos on average do you watch a day? How many hours a day are you watching YouTube or TikTok? Do you guys know? By the end of your day, how many YouTube videos have you probably watched? I've probably watched anywhere between 7 and 15, maybe 20. Because each video can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 hours, but I watch everything on 1.5 to 2 point speed. So if the average person, if a normie who's not on the internet, you know what I mean? If they're watching 40 minutes tops of a video, because think about a normie day. This is what a normie day says to me. A normal day for a normal person, and we're talking about the majority, you wake up at 6, you get ready for 2 hours. Maybe you watch the morning news. You go to work at 8. You work at a desk job that doesn't allow you to listen to outside media. There's no way to get earphones in your ears, okay? Because like when I worked a minimum wage job, when I worked at a grocery store, zero opportunity to watch YouTube. Absolutely zero opportunity. If you're working at McDonald's, you're not watching YouTube videos unless you're sneaking in the back to watch videos. When I worked at In-N-Out, when I worked at a vet, zero opportunity to watch videos. I had no opportunity to be on my phone. There was just no chance. So you're in your day from 8 to 5, commuting home, let's say an hour. Maybe you're listening in the car. So that's your first chance to listen to something, right? And then you get home and you have to put the kids to bed. You have to read them books. Maybe your house doesn't have technology that way. So, you know, it depends on your job and what field you're in. But like, who has the time? Who's a doctor or a nurse and has the time to be watching YouTube videos all day unless they're on their break, right? Like I think some jobs allow for it and other jobs don't, but I think it is far less common for people to have time to watch all these things, right? Chet says, but I assume that people are on Instagram or on Twitter. Yeah, but what does that mean if all their Twitter and Instagram is just memes? Most people aren't interested in politics. Most people have no conception that what they're memeing about on YouTube. Oh my God, I just got the greatest example. Stop, don't interrupt me. Hold on, don't get distracted. Do you remember that scene in The Devil Wears Prada where Andrea, what's her name, laughs at Miranda for saying like, oh, there's such, what color blue should we use? And then the woman goes, oh, there's such different colors of blue. And then Andrea laughs. And then Meryl Streep, Miranda's character, goes like, oh, that weird blue you're wearing was picked from you from an blah, 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 blah. Same thing with political bubbles. The memes on the internet that these boys are sharing have no idea it was picked for you from subcategories of racist groups that have created this meme. So your stupid ass is replying it on Twitter. You have no idea why you are even memeing the thing you are memeing. You are just posting the content. You are just as your decisions are made for you 5 steps before you even realize why you're interested in this thing or think this thing is funny. Do you know what I mean? So regular typical society still thinks it's picking and choosing its memes. Your memes are picked for you, babe, by the degenerates on the internet who live here. You're welcome. You're welcome. And that's why normie society is like, oh yeah, we realize that the Pepe the Frog thing is impacting our life, but we don't know how we got here. The cesspool on the internet is susceptible to this as well, because we think we're originators of thought. We're not. But yeah, like normie society doesn't know why their kids are interested in things, because they don't even know how their kids found it. And their kids don't even know how they found it. And they don't even know how we got here. Right? So we have to remember that. Chat says you're specifically talking about the political internet influence, not just internet culture in general. Well, in the context of this video, mentioning Pepe the Frog and the memes that started on 4chan, that is very dark internet. That is not normie internet. That's not Marvel character memes internet. That's not, what's that normie game girls and people play on their phone? It's like a farming game. See, I'm not normie enough to play that game. What is that called? That's like every middle-aged mom I know plays these games. The diamond game and like the phone games. I'm not one of these billions of people who play these games, or these millions of people, right? Animal Crossing, good one. And there's another one, Candy Crush. Thank you. Stardew Valley, exactly. Farmville, yes. Okay, all of these things, that is like the epitome of normie to me. See, I didn't grow up with normie parents, right? I didn't grow up with normie parents. My parents are hipsters, so they reject normie culture, but they embrace MAGA culture because they know it's not normie. Do you guys know that? Do you know MAGA culture is not normie culture? MAGA culture is not the majority of Americans. Don't let MAGA people convince you a majority of Americans wanted Trump. They didn't, because the majority of Americans don't vote. You don't know what they wanted. Don't let people convince you that MAGA culture is normie culture. What is typical throughout the United States is racism and bigotry, but MAGA specifically is not normie culture. So don't let people convince you that a majority of Americans are MAGA, in the same way that a majority of Americans aren't progressive either. A majority of Americans, hey, say it with me, are indifferent. They don't give a fuck. They want to have opinions about things they never engage with, and they don't know. Chad says the majority of America doesn't vote. A majority of America does not vote, y'all. No. A majority of eligible voters do not come out and vote. It's very niche to be in politics. You're a weirdo. It used to be a weirdo when I was growing up, ever being in politics. It's more hip now. It's more cool now. But I guarantee you these boys are still not voting. They might even say, I want to know how many of these people say they voted, but they didn't. Because I know a lot of people are going to say they voted, but they didn't. And that's the thing, too. How many of these boys who say they love Trump even bothered to fill out their ballot and register to vote? Not, like I'm telling you right now, voting is a very specific bubble. All of this is very specific. So yes, so in relation to the question I was asked, in relation to this video, in relation to the online bubble, a lot of people I talk to, like example, my bestie, my best friend of 27 years, knows nothing about the Vlogbrothers, knows nothing about online bubbles, knows all she knows is about anything that was on TV that is now on the internet. Her life revolves around like the daily, what did we just watch? What is John Stewart on? The Daily Wire? The Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro. Oh my God, The Daily Show. Thank you. Oh my God, I just had a stroke. My friend knows what the Daily Show is because it was on TV and now it's on the internet. But she doesn't know about the Daily Wire. She might know who Ben Shapiro is, but probably won't know who he is. I could ask her, but we never talk about Ben Shapiro, so I don't even know if she knows who he is. Because even though she has a political sci minor, she minored in political science, she doesn't do politics for a living. Do you know what I'm saying? She doesn't know about like she thinks my job is weird. She thinks it's weird I have a job. She's like, I don't get it. People listen to you talk about stuff. And I was like, yes. And she's like, I don't get it. And I was like, yeah, we watch streamers. She goes, I don't get it. Like, people think it's crazy to watch streamers. They watch clips at most. They don't watch streams all day. That's not normal. Streamers are not a common thing. So yeah, like we're doing something kind of different here because even talk radio, talk radio was kind of niche for the time because there was just people talking. So many people on talk radio. Rush Limbaugh didn't even graduate high school, I think. Yet he was the #1 talk radio host for the longest time because people don't care if you've gone to college. They just want to hear somebody, they want to hear from real people. And that was the brand. The brand is like real people doing real things. That's why people loved YouTube. But see, my friend never got into the YouTube bubble. When I fell in love with YouTube, I fell in love with the idea of just regular people speaking their mind. My friend didn't care. She was like, why would I watch that? She likes comedians. She likes people who make memes. She likes jokes, but she doesn't care about Vlogbrothers. She doesn't care about streamers. She doesn't care about, and she's a college graduate, has a job. And like a lot of my friends who have jobs and work normie jobs, they don't really know about nerd culture. The internet is kind of nerd culture. You know what I mean? Anyways, that was a really long rant to talk about how we're not normal. Yeah, but we're not normal. We're going to be the new normal though. I think we will be the new normal, the real normal, but we're not there yet. The fact that this is the first generation of kids that say they all want to be influencers, that's what tells you it's new. Because that wasn't the case in my generation. It wasn't the case before. Gen Z or Gen Alpha being the first group of kids who truly all want to be influencers, that's the beginning. But we're not there yet. I think by the time Gen Beta is old enough, it will be so normal to have an internet job that we won't even understand why we're talking about it badly. Keep in mind, people still think Hassan doesn't have a real job. Other YouTubers will shame other YouTubers for saying they have a job on YouTube and that it's hard. Because you're allowed to say every job is hard except YouTube. Because YouTube is the new McDonald's to conservatives. Conservatives used to say, how dare you complain that you have a minimum wage job? Your job is easy, it's minimum wage. But now, how dare you complain that you have a job on the internet? You have a job on the internet. Bubbles.
Everyone was starting to see our political system as a farce. This cynicism was being seen outside the political arena too, in things like the rise of meme stocks and the great GameStop pump around this time. Online communities like the subreddit Wall Street Bets were suddenly bringing institutional stock market investors and trading apps like Robinhood to their knees. People, especially young people, began to see that everything could be manipulated and nothing mattered. The entire idea of working a 9-to-5.
Hold on, God, we're never going to get through this video. Chat said, what's going to happen with all these other jobs if the majority will have a job on the internet? Okay. Why are you asking that question? Before I answer it, why are you asking the question? Do you actually have that question? Did you hear it from somebody else? Or do you really not know how the job market works in that, like, how old are you? Where are you coming from? I only ask because when people ask that question, I have to ask, why are you asking me that question? Not me. Why are you even asking the question? Did we not learn how industries work? Do you not know what happened to people who used to raise horses for a living, or carriages, or people who used to, herd sheep? Like, what do those people do now? Like, when people talk about innovation, like, what do you think that means? Do you think that because, the internet exists, no one's going to be an engineer anymore? Or because the internet exists, like, no one's going to want to be a doctor? Do you think, like, painters won't exist because AI exists? Like, do we think that human beings throughout time stop doing what they want to do because other things became available? What about the fact that most of these kids who try to be an influencer, they won't actually be able to do it successfully and they'll have to have a different job? Like, do you think because people can become actors, now what is everyone going to do? Right? Chat says, I actually had this question come into my brain. To be fair, I'm not that educated. I was bouncing off your point. Great. I love that. Thank you. Now I want you to ask that question in relation to acting. Like, oh, if everyone can be an actor and a singer, who's going to have a real job? If you ask kids in the 90s, what do you want to be? They would say a part of a boy band or a girl band. I want to be a singer like Britney Spears. I want to be a singer like TLC. I want to be a singer like Destiny's Child. Yeah, but like we're not, and we didn't because we couldn't. Just because kids want to be influencers doesn't mean they will be. It's just a kid dream. That's what kids do. Kids dream about being the cool thing, but they're not going to be able to do it. In the same way, a majority of my friends and family aren't online influencers. Just because I'm a content creator, like you would think because I was able to make it a success that everybody in my life would want to do it, but they don't want to, right? Look, AI will never replace an authentic writer, an authentic creator. AI is never going to be as good. Guys, I've read AI short stories. They're bad. They make me want to die. They're so bad. I've seen AI art. It's fun for certain things, but it's bad. Don't ever allow yourself to think that the computer generated thing is ever going to replace you. And if you think that, you might as well stop now. But then you were never meant to be a creative, were you? Creatives don't stop just because something gets in the way. Creatives use that as a reason to create more. Create better things. You know you have it in you. Or maybe you don't. And that's also the sign to choose a different career. Maybe it was never for you or a different passion. But if you're creative, AI won't be a problem. It will just be a hurdle. It will just be something else that will continue to make an artist's job harder, but it will never take away your ability to create art.
For 40 years, just to one day retire in a meager house before dying of lack of health insurance seems like a scam when you could just make millions overnight pumping AMC without ever even going to college. The crypto boom throughout 2021 and 2022 exacerbated this nihilistic sentiment. This period led to what was essentially a mass blackpilling, a term that denotes a deep-seated cynicism and disillusionment with systemic structures. This disillusionment manifested in various ways. Most people, including most liberals and leftists even, retreated into full-on COVID denial. Overwhelmed by the scale of public health challenges and apparent indifference of leadership to mass death, they drank down right-wing propaganda. Others vocalized their dissent, trying to explain that COVID never ended. It didn't just go away. The government just wants you to ignore it and to keep working. They only face backlash and abuse. This environment of gaslighting and suppression amplified people's feelings of isolation. By 2022, pressure built and people could feel that life was never going back to normal. The ground had fundamentally shifted.
That is true. Nothing in life looks like my childhood. Nothing today looks anything like my childhood. My friend and I talk about this all the time. Like our childhood, I can't even explain it to you. Nothing will ever look like that again to the average person. And it's just like life. Wow, what a time to be alive. You always wonder about our ancestors and throughout history, like what were people like through these big transitions? We're in one, girl. We're in one. We are living history. We are in a transition. Wow. That's why I say don't do it for you. Do it for them. Do it for the future. In a lot of ways. Chad says, I think I remember you saying that there are bubbles that aren't affected by politics. Do you think it's selfish, unethical to intentionally create such a bubble for yourself? No. I don't think it's unethical. Because if you create the right kind of a bubble, then you will also mitigate harm. I think there are people, when I say they're not impacted by politics, I mean, imagine a person that has a homestead or maybe a farm or lives out in the woods, buys their land, pays their tax. So they're impacted in that sense, but they don't go out, they don't protest, they don't bother people. They do right by their neighbors. They're engaging in a harm reduction. That is fine. They're not morally obligated to get involved in politics, but politics might end up interacting with their life because we're impacted by society and society is political. But you don't have to live a life that moves you outside of this small bubble. There are people every day I meet who have no idea what's going on in the world, who have no connection to anything that's going on. And they have a large probability of living and dying in the home they've been in their whole life without ever needing to interact with anything around them. And they won't ever know. They won't ever know the difference of what happened around them. You ever see those houses? This is an analogy. You ever see those houses that stay and don't sell to the developer and the developer builds all around them, but this property is exactly the same, untouched? It's like that, but a person's life. So when I say they're not impacted by politics, I don't mean that this house that refused to give in to the developer isn't impacted by dealing with the developer on a daily basis. I mean that this house is the same it was, regardless of how the world changed around them. You know? So sometimes it's not about privilege. Sometimes it's about stubbornness. Sometimes the best thing to do is fight the developer and not give in to the change. So maybe the privilege was in changing with the developer. Maybe you were privileged enough to sell your house, right? Maybe sometimes the privilege is being able to go to a protest. You know, it just depends on your story. For some people, it is a privilege to protest, like to even be able to get there. And then for some people, they don't have a choice. They have to protest. They don't have the privilege not to. You have to ask yourself, which category are you? But I would rather a monk meditate in the woods and never bother society than a person who's always trying to protest on behalf of aborted babies. Not all political protest is good protest. Some of it is bad. Like trying to advocate for white supremacy. I would rather you stay home and play video games all day than get out there and advocate for white supremacy. So if you build a bubble in which you never bother people or do any harm, I would rather that. But, you know.
Shifted beneath them. Something felt off and wrong. It was different, but it was hard to pinpoint what. These feelings were immortalized in the meme that year that became known as the vibe shift. Denialism took hold, and this is when the memory holding of 2020 really accelerated. People were pressured to rip off their masks, throw caution to the wind, and stop caring about others. The public dealt with their collective trauma through hedonistic nihilism and deep narcissism. This was also reflected in a slew of memes that became popular around that time, all of which prioritized centering yourself above others. Pretty much everyone had main character syndrome, and there was this heavy refocus on individualism.
Because we think we're the exception. We think we're the exception. America is the exception. So then we're all the exception. So then we get to have main character syndrome because we're the exception. When I stopped believing I was the exception, my life got better. I was more realistic with how I played a role in life. Even if I've done exceptional things, I've done exceptional things. I have been in the minority of exceptionalism, and I know that I am not all around an exceptional person, because nobody ever is. No one is ever the exception. But sometimes in life, you get to be the exception, but it's just for one section of your life, right? It's not for everything else. Just as the exception to what? Human limitation? More like the exception to getting sick, to getting targeted. It's like the people who brag about having COVID 5 times. They're like, I've had no consequences to COVID, versus me who had it one time and I'm chronically ill now. I had COVID once and it fucking destroyed my body. And I've met people who are like, I've had COVID like 5 times, bro, and I'm literally fine. And I'm like, I doubt you're fine. I doubt you're ignoring probably the problems you have, but sure. Do you know what I mean? Sure.
Position of mass death from unmitigated COVID spread and government inaction, coupled with a seemingly rigged financial and political system, fostered a sense of betrayal. Nothing matters anymore, so you might as well enjoy life. Unalive your neighbor by infecting them with a deadly disease. Who cares about vulnerable?
By the way, do you guys remember? You probably don't. I just got reminded of how I got COVID because I was rewatching my old videos and I was like, oh yeah, that's how I got COVID. I forgot how I got COVID. I was trying to remember like who gave me COVID. My brother, Mark, you guys know him. He's been on the channel before. He had just moved to Seattle. He was going to restart his life there. Did not go to plan. He got terribly sick and he didn't know what was going on. He fainted in the street. He passed out. They got him to the doctor. He had COVID. And he was like, what the fuck? And he has got asthma. So it was really bad. Like he literally passed out in the street. And he was going to start his life over in Seattle, but he couldn't do it. He didn't have the resources there to do it and have COVID and be sick. So he called me and he said, Britt, I have COVID and I'm sick and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, I'm going to come get you. And he said, okay, but like, what does that mean? I was like, I'm going to take a plane. I'll fly to you. I'll pick you up and I'll drive you back home because we can't put you on a plane. You have COVID and you need to be isolated. So I got in a plane. I called my friend in Arizona and I said, can I park my car at your apartment and go pick up my brother? And when I come back, I'm going to get my car, but you can't talk to me because I'm going to get COVID probably. I'm going to be exposed. So you can't talk to me. And they said, yeah. So I called my friend, talking about never doing anything alone. Called my friend. one of my brothers I lived with watched my cat. I told my audience I have to go. I got on a plane, drove 3 hours to the airport in Phoenix, jumped on a plane after dropping my car off at my friend's house, got on a plane, picked up my brother, landed in Seattle. My friends met me. Oh my God, I'm having such a good memory. My friends from Seattle met me at the airport of the airport. Oh my God, this is so good. Okay. I get there, I land. Oh my God, my friends come and they bring me a care package of snacks with masks on, and they're totally like distancing. They bring me a care package of snacks for our road trip back. Oh, this is so cute. I'm having like a new memory. I jump in the car with my brother. We get each other. I have the snack pack for my friends, and we start road tripping from Seattle back to Arizona, which is like 20 something hours, by the way. It's a very long fucking trip. And we drove. We did drive-throughs only. We masked up. We made sure that when we used bathrooms, we tried to stop at truck stops so we wouldn't be like with the general population. And we made it. We made it back to Arizona. We isolated for like 3 weeks. We were all sick. Everybody in the house got sick, basically. And yeah, I lost a ton of weight. It was horrible. I couldn't taste or eat anything. But yeah, that's what we did. Like yeah. Wow, shout out to my Seattle friends. Whoop whoop. Shout out to a good group of people right there. Anyways, what a time. What a time to be alive. So I think we forget how things impact us and how we never do anything alone. Like even remembering that COVID story. Yeah, or even my brother saying like, I can't believe my sister came and just picked me up and then drove me back. It's like, yeah, that's what we do for people we love. You know, or that's what I do. I'm the friend who gets on a plane, you know? Jess says, did you get anxiety? Well, I already have anxiety, but I wasn't worried about getting sick. I was worried about my brother dying. I think the fact that I was worried about him dying overcame my worry about COVID. I was not worried about COVID. Actually, I was probably ignorantly not worried about COVID, if I'm going to be honest. Because all I was thinking about, I'm the older sister. I care for people. Like I'm the kind of person in the story that takes care of the sick person, even if I think I'll get sick. I was born to be a mom. I'm a mom. And moms don't worry about getting sick when their kids are sick. That's like, I accept that's why I get called when things go wrong, because I'm the one who's going to do it. I also wouldn't care if I died helping my brother. It'd be like, yeah, whatever, bro. It happens. It happens. Am I for real? Like, or am I right? Am I right? You know, it happens, you know? But yeah, he was fine. We were fine. But I was terrified for him because his asthma sucks. He has really shit asthma as an adult. It just keeps getting worse, you know? Anyways, let's go back to this video that we're apparently never finishing.
People anymore. Just get yours. Our entire economic and political system is being held together by a string, and all you can depend on is yourself. But while everyone was dancing their pain away in 2022, elites were reclaiming their power. In October 2022, Elon Musk arrived at Twitter HQ in San Francisco carrying a bathroom sink. In the first few months after taking over the company, he rolled back DEI policies and allowed hordes of white supremacists and extremists back onto his platform. He revamped the algorithm to boost billionaires and downrank progressive activists. He banned a slew of journalists, including me, for reporting critically on him and other tech leaders. Far-right extremists that were previously marginalized were suddenly waging successful comebacks by capitalizing on the manufactured backlash to woke. Alex Jones was replatformed in 2023 as influencers like Andrew Tate surged in popularity. Billionaires like Musk were able to operate seemingly with impunity, and Democrats who were ostensibly in charge weren't doing anything about it. By the summer of 2023, you could see this nihilism and anti-elite sentiment creeping out all over the internet. In June 2023, the implosion of the Ocean Gate Titan submarine piloted by billionaire Stockton Rush on a vanity expedition to—
I'm not going to play with you. I did enjoy the memes, but I never said I was a good person. I'm just kidding. I am a good person. But that app was testing me. Okay. The Lord was testing me during that time. It was testing me, but I'm not going to play. I was in it. I was ready. I was like, give me the sounds. Is there audio? I'm very sad. It's very sad. But also the memes were very good. And human beings are so good. Dark humor is the best thing humanity ever created. We're just good at it. We're good at dark humor. And P.S., please watch my podcast yesterday on Theo Von and Palestine, because I do feature my favorite Palestinian family who's suffering in Gaza right now, who has perfected the art of dark humor while being in Gaza with their kids and surviving a genocide. Okay, they have perfected the art of dark humor. And I wish nothing but goodness on their family. And I really hope that they survive this genocide so, you know, they can live to talk about it, because God knows there's a high probability. I'm stressed now for them. Oh, God.
to view the Titanic became an immediate meme. Within minutes of the news breaking, people were joking about imploding billionaires all over TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. People posted with glee about, quote, natural selection. They made playlists joking about it and posted lists of other billionaires they hoped would take a submarine ride. People weren't openly calling for billionaires to be executed yet, but they were certainly celebrating when they died. I would argue that the submarine memes of 2023 were the moment that it became clear that millions of people online believed that maybe the rich shouldn't make it out alive. That same month, we saw people rally around orcas who inexplicably began attacking and sinking yachts. Memes and parody news sites joked about the orcas literally eating the rich. By the end of that summer, Burning Man...
There's something funny about orcas targeting the rich. Okay, there's something a little funny. And by the way, you want to talk about conscientiousness and like awareness? Orcas are fully, you want to talk, every time somebody's like, animals don't even think, man, they just move off instinct. You ever met an orca? You ever met an orca? Girl, she is contemplating 4D chessing your ass into her mouth, girl. Especially if you're a seal. Okay? Please.
And was engulfed in mud due to heavy rainfall, and the entire internet once again began relishing in rich people's suffering. The perceived irony of a gathering that championed radical self-reliance yet attracted tech elites arriving in private jets and luxury RVs was too much. The Schadenfreude wasn't just merely about the festival. It reflected a broader societal disdain for the wealthy, particularly those seen as out of touch or hypocritical. Then October 7th happened. Palestinians who had been oppressed, tortured, and ethnically cleansed by Israel's apartheid regime for decades fought back.
Chet says, would you go live with Noah during his fundraiser? I mean, I would have loved to have participated in something like that, but I was watching it. I mean, I assume Noah invited people to come on. I don't think Noah knows who I am or anything. So I just promoted it. I linked it. I shared it. I've been watching it to give it more boost. It's really amazing. He has done an amazing job. Really has. So that's amazing, you know, but I don't want to interrupt anything. I don't want it to be, I don't know what the rules are. I'm just a socially autistic girl who's here to support. So good for Noah.
Israel responded.
Like, I don't think I'm a big enough person to bring more viewers into it. Do you know what I mean? Chet says he's extending, but also saw lots of Brit fans in the chat. Oh, okay, let's go. He is doing great.
By committing a live stream genocide for the entire world to see, slaughtering tens of thousands of...
Also, this is not important, but I really think him bleaching half of his hair was honestly a good decision. I think his audience did him a favor. I think this fundraiser did us all a favor. Helped Palestinians and looking pretty good with that half bleached hair.
Innocent children and committing grave atrocities and war crimes. Israel murdered hundreds of journalists, bombed schools and hospitals, and did it all in the open for anyone with internet access to witness. But that's not how the mainstream media reported it. Suddenly, U.S. airwaves were flooded with pro-Israel propaganda. Papers like the New York Times began pushing outright lies and easily debunked hoaxes in an effort to manufacture consent for the war crimes and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. College students and other people who spoke out against this were met with extreme violence from the police. Young students at Columbia University faced federal charges for peaceful protests, and the government under Biden began cracking down aggressively on speech. At the same time, RICO charges were being levied at protesters fighting against Cop City in Atlanta, and people who spoke up about social justice were fired from their jobs and blacklisted from industries. It was a radicalizing moment on the internet. Suddenly, people could see that our system is actually totally comfortable with violence, as long as the violence is perpetuated against vulnerable and oppressed people. It's only violence against powerful people that's punished. Kyle Rittenhouse, for instance, was acquitted of all charges for shooting an anti-fascist protester dead, while peaceful college students were ending up in jail. Witnessing the most graphic and horrific war crimes.
But okay, zoom out with me philosophically. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. I think all human beings on a spectrum are more than fine with violence, which I think can be appropriate, but often is very inappropriate with how we engage in violence. And that's what I want. That's what I want us to recognize, is that we all agree violence is sometimes necessary. What we're disagreeing on is when the violence is necessary. And I'm saying, I go with Tao Te Ching. It should be the last resort always, but it's not without consideration. It is not without possibility. It should simply just not be our first desire, right? And the world, remember that the world is a reflection of us as a whole. So our, us being like desensitized to violence is not abnormal for the time we're in. It's a part of our nature, right? That's the dilemma. So when Theo says, I can't believe we're watching this genocide happen before our eyes, well, believe it, girl, because it's not the first time and it's not going to be the last time. So the question isn't just how do we stop this genocide? The question is, how do we stop all genocides? What is causing anyone to ever think a genocide makes sense? A cleansing makes sense. An ethnic cleansing makes sense. Where does that come from? And again, we don't even have time to think about it because we're just trying to stop it from happening in the first place. But somebody should be thinking about it because we're going to need some solutions, girls.
Palestine constantly via their phones also normalized violence to the American public in a way that I don't think it ever had been before. I think finally people were able to see exactly how violent and hypocritical the US empire is and how cavalier people in power are about that hypocrisy. You can see these beliefs reflected in polls throughout 2023. For instance, a 2023 survey by the Public Religion Research Institute showed that about a quarter of US citizens agreed that Americans, quote, may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. This was up sharply from just 15% in 2021. And I also just want to stress again how high both of these numbers are for a country that's theoretically a democracy. Like in normal democracies, you don't have these high numbers. By 2024, a pervasive sense of disillusionment had taken hold. Joe Biden's decision to seek re-election despite widespread concerns about his age and cognitive.
Chat says, do you think our violent nature is the reason capitalism has taken hold of us as a globe? That's a great question. My intuition tells me no, but let me see if I can think about it on the spot. I think our nature, and this is maybe me being a little bit optimistic, I think our nature is actually so fucking chill that we do not engage in direct violence, but instead, well, in direct extreme violence, but instead allow other people to do it for us. And this is why veganism has been so interesting to me lately. What allows us to engage in eating animals we would not slaughter ourselves because we can't handle it? My brother, who has a farm for his family, slaughters animals for his family, raises them. You know, he does it, quote, the best way. Forgive me, but you know. And his like second mom, let's call her, she gets mad because she thinks it's cruel to slaughter an animal you know, but eats at McDonald's and Burger King. And it's like, girl, just because you didn't do the slaughtering yourself, you know, you're still eating the meat, girl. And so for me, I don't see too much of a difference. And as I'm going on this plant-based journey, a big part of it isn't that I wouldn't be able to slaughter the animal itself. I think I could, but I wouldn't want to. And I think that's kind of the point. Is like, I don't want to do it. And because I don't want to do it, maybe I shouldn't be engaging in it. You know, so I say I'm plant-based because I haven't quite gotten on board with the whole embodied experience of the vegan philosophy, but I'm vibing with it. So I don't think our violence, I'm closing my eyes because I'll get distracted by chat. I don't think the violence that is baked into our, you know, biological experience is the reason we allow capitalism to flourish. I think our biological propensity for chillness allows us to allow other people to get their hands dirty so we don't have to, because we just want to vibe. I think we actually just want to vibe. I think most people just want to fucking vibe. But I think we don't understand how to just vibe without it coming at the expense of other people. Right? So I think, I don't think human beings are actually like very violent. I think we all engage with violence, but I don't think we're all violent. I think we just engage with levels of violence because we don't know what else to do. And I'm saying, well, maybe we could do something else. Something like that. Discourse said the idea that capitalism spread due to our violent nature also implies that capitalism is a uniquely violent system when it really isn't. Definitely not compared to pre-capitalistic societies. Yeah, I agree with that as well. Like, I don't think, I don't think it's quite like baked into our nature in that way. Chet says, I think capitalism is more connected to greed and violence is the means they use to protect their greedy interests. Yeah, definitely. I think ultimately the worst people you know become the leaders. The worst people you know rise to the ranks. The worst people you know are willing to engage in like, listen, maybe we should make Gaza, hear me out, a resort. Trump goes, I don't want to be a cute guy. I don't want to be cute, but hear me out. The Riviera of the Middle East. Hear me out. I don't want to be cute about it. Yeah, I think we let the worst people we know, because they're willing to do it. I'm not willing to do it. I can't. Do you know what I get stressed about the most with my job? Do you want to know what stresses me out the absolute most about my job? Is I can't do it. One, it feels fucking fake as shit. But two, I just can't get up here and play some fucking script for y'all so I get more viewers and money and status so I can become, quote, a leader in a system that's so fucked up that I even had to play a script in the first place. Look, I love a script. I just don't want a script where I have to be like, hey guys, welcome to today's show. It is so meaningful to me that you are here. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. And remember that we have to beat capitalism because these white men are driving us crazy. Am I right? Am I so fucking right? I'm right. Also, shout out to T Swift because really, what is being a feminist if it doesn't mean being a Swiftie? Was that good? I think that was pretty good. I think that was, I could do it actually. Wait, maybe I could do it. Welcome back to today's show where once again, the radical left is coming for your freedom. Once again, these blue-haired lesbians with their nose rings are coming for democracy. But we as good faith Americans who believe in our Lord Jesus Christ, Christ is king. Am I right, you guys? Shout out to Candace Owens and Ye, because at the end of the day, who is more Christ-like than them? Hey, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. I could do it. I could do it. Clip it. Chat, stop. I'm going to get clipped. Yeah. I don't know. Brett Cooper style. Hey guys, did you see what happened on the left today? Also, welcome to my bedroom. That's definitely not a set. I definitely sleep in this bedroom. Also, these books, I've definitely read them. Anyways, I'm really upset today because I saw something on TikTok that genuinely just made me so PO'd. I was so effing angry, bros. I was so effing angry, I almost forgot I'm not related to Ben Shapiro, even though I look like his little sister. Anyways, you know, what do I know?
Abilities caused people to question whether our democratic system was really working. His disastrous debate performance and revelations about the Democratic Party's efforts to downplay his mental issues only sowed more distrust. For most of 2024, it felt like we were a nation sleepwalking with no one at the helm. When Trump was shot at a Pennsylvania rally in July of 2024, blood wasn't even dry on his ear before it had become a meme. People bemoaned the fact that he hadn't turned his head even slightly to the side, which would have had deadly consequences. The assassination attempt normalized discourse about Trump's death and fed these overall nihilistic sentiments. Later that summer, throughout Kamala Harris's campaign, the Democrats—
Oh my God, true. Classically, Abby is actually Ben Shapiro's sister. She never got as big as Brett, did she? Huh, yeah, I forgot that she actually does have a sister.
Party further disenfranchised people by refusing to listen to voters' concerns about Gaza, COVID, and more. In what became an infamous meme in August 2024, Democratic delegates literally plugged their ears to drown out anti-genocide protesters. It sent a clear message to the American public: we will not listen to you and we do not care what you have to say. People's growing disenfranchisement with the system extended to the electoral process itself. Polls at the time indicated that only 37% of Americans believed the 2024 elections would be both honest and open. 43% had serious doubts about our democracy. These numbers reflect a significant decline in trust. This skepticism was exacerbated by concerns over media transparency and the manipulation of information. By the end of 2024, a record number of people reported feeling powerless and disillusioned, viewing our political system as irreparably broken and unresponsive to their needs. As the academic Jamie Cohen told me, quote, much like many authoritarian countries, people realized America is a democracy in name only. Then, on December 4th, 2024, United Health CEO Brian Thompson was shot dead in the street. Within days, the police had apprehended Luigi Mangione as their prime suspect. Even before his arrest, the killing became a meme, and millions rallied behind Mangione's alleged actions. The public and legal response to Mangione once again revealed the massive disparity between how people in power treat different victims of violence. Mangione currently faces federal and state charges, including murder and terrorism. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that the state would pursue the death penalty. Meanwhile, the week Mangione was arrested, Daniel Penny, a former white Marine, was acquitted after choking Jordan Neely, a black homeless man experiencing a mental health crisis on this.
Wait, classically Abby has no fucking views. Wait, that's so interesting. Yeah, she gets like my views. I'm a small YouTube channel. She has like 100,000 subscribers, so I guess we're the same. That's really common. But she's Ben Shapiro's sister. Interesting. But then she said goodbye.
It's time to say goodbye to Classically Abby. It has been about 5 years since I started my YouTube channel. I think it's about 5 years. And I have loved every second of making content for you all. I think any creator of a YouTube channel, of a brand, believes in everything that they've done, but also changes over time. And I know that that's true for me. And I know that you constantly see on YouTube children, and all of those things still matter to me. Don't get me wrong. So I have been thinking a lot about where my priorities have shifted and what my time looks like right now.
Interesting.
And it became incredibly
Okay, Ben Shapiro's sister. Well, she tried.
Subway to death. As Cohen told me, quote, "It felt like there was no such thing as penalty any longer unless you're saying something that criticizes people in power or supports social justice." Just a few months later, in February 2025, the US government responded to the escalating Tesla takedown protests with severe crackdowns, and officials began labeling acts of vandalism against Tesla cars as domestic terrorism. Trump warned that people who harmed Tesla cars could face up to 20 years in prison, potentially serving sentences in El Salvador. The FBI established a specialized task force to investigate incidents of Tesla car attacks. At the same time, innocent lawful residents of this country began getting deported for thought crimes. Chaotic tariff policies have plunged our economy into chaos. We have witnessed the massive undue firing of federal workers and are experiencing unprecedented crackdowns on speech. All of these tensions reached a boiling point by March when the "someone's gotta do it" memes really started to become pervasive. Posts endorsing political violence targeting Trump and, to a lesser extent, Elon Musk have racked up tens of millions of likes. These memes have become some of the most popular content online in recent months. By early April, outlets like the New York Post were already bemoaning the rising, quote, "assassination culture" on the left, as if the right hasn't embraced the same culture for years. The Network Contagion Research Institute and Rutgers University's Social Perception Lab recently issued a report about the rise in pro-assassination content online. The report found that 55% of left-of-center internet users considered that of Trump somewhat justified, while 48% felt the same about Elon Musk. The report explained that these attitudes are not isolated and are part of a broader political shift tied to feelings of powerlessness. The researchers emphasized the need for proactive measures to counter this trend. They begged institutions to reinforce norms and promote, quote, "constructive political dialogue." But that ship has sailed. Asking the public to uphold norms while Trump flouts due process on a near daily basis is a joke. But the one thing that I actually do agree with the NCRI on is that the spread of content promoting political violence is a sign of a deeply, deeply unhealthy democratic society. Don Caldwell, editor-in-chief of Know Your Meme, said that the reason pro-assassination memes have become so popular is because they're cathartic, especially when people feel powerless and there are events happening in the world that are out of their control. People use these memes as a release. Josh Citarella, a researcher who studies extremism, told me that these memes are exploding in popularity right now because, quote, "the liberal project has basically failed. People do not believe in a lawful and orderly society anymore. The enormous accumulation of wealth and power by oligarchs invalidates the rule of law. The end result is that you can theoretically have executions in the public square. That's what we're going back to." People are advocating for these things on social media because the rules don't matter anymore.
Ooh, I was just watching a TikTok about the Russian oligarchs and how people came and killed all their babies in them because 70% of Russia was in deep poverty. Over 70%? And then in the early 1900s, after having all these like lavish balls and stuff, it's very let them eat cake, It's very interesting. I think I'm devastated for humanity that we get to this point. But also, I do think it's a reflection of us. We put Trump in power. We put these people in power and then we're like unhappy with it. But that's why I say that's why I think my special interest is introspection. How do I participate in the world that is created? And I do think what's amazing is that and I think this was what's so hard. I think that's what was so hard about watching Not So Erudite yesterday, talk on the Whatever podcast, because she's sitting here arguing for the feminist side and yet supporting Destiny. And it's or she's sitting here talking about the feminist side and then talking about how she does honor her husband and making decisions even when he's wrong. And I'm but we wonder how the world ends up. And then I know that I am a participant in a very similar contribution to harm, where I have over my years absolutely made excuses for bad men. Totally. Because you see the good parts of them. But what I've come to realize is the good parts of them just don't make up for all the bad parts. Because if the good parts were loud enough, they would eventually learn the lesson, and then they don't. They don't learn the lesson. And it's okay, then we have to talk about this. We have to talk about accepting that people don't learn the lesson. The bomber, the guy who bombed the fertility clinic that just happened. Apparently he was upset because nobody asked his consent to be born, which is okay, we get it, go to therapy. But what was interesting is that his father was interviewed and he said, nobody knows him the way I know him. And I said, yeah, as parents, as everybody in our life, I know the men in my life better than anybody, but I also know them enough to know that a few of them are undateable girls. If you were dating them, I'd be no, They're going to hurt you. They're going to hurt you in ways that they can't process because they're not engaging with introspection, you know? And I think that's the thing that I want for people, is I want for people to understand that the world is a reflection of us as a whole, that they can't become this way until we engage with them in this way. And I know, like, we want these people in power to do what's right by us, but like, they'll never do what's right by us. I need everyone to accept it because we don't do what's right by us. And they're a reflection of us. They're not, you know, twisting your arm and forcing you to do stuff. You're still just doing it. And what are they using to make you do it? Fear. But this is why do I say don't do anything out of fear? Because bad people use that against you. Don't do it out of fear. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Even if it means like maybe you die. Right? Now, obviously, there are really good situations, not out of fear, but out of discernment, to avoid dying some days. Okay? But sometimes that's like the greatest thing they can use is like they will sit here in offices and create ways to exploit you, to take your last $5 every time because they know you'll give it to them. If they make you feel like you're missing out, FOMO, the fear of missing out. Oh, if you don't get in this event now, you're going to miss out. How did Myron Gaines convince his followers to spend, what was it, like $5,000 to be on a yacht full of paid women and mostly just men? FOMO, bro. You know, FOMO. Don't let that get you. Don't let the FOMO get you. Fear of missing out. That's how trends keep you poor because, oh my God, if I don't have the latest thing, if I don't do the latest trend, I'm not going to make the latest, like, girl. Okay? That's all I'm saying is like, I'm not saying these billionaires aren't complicit or need to be held accountable. I am saying, though, you have so much more power than you know if you could deconstruct the relationship you have to what they're offering you in terms of product. It won't be perfect, but it will be something. You know, also, what do you guys think about this? My Discord and I were having this discussion. Do you think it's protest or activism or anything of the sort if you're protesting something you weren't going to engage with in the first place? Like if you say like, I'm going to protest the Super Bowl this year because they're super racist. Is it really a protest if if you don't watch the Super Bowl? I've been thinking about this because let me tell you girls, I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to buy something on Amazon and I'm busy boycotting them this year. And I'll tell you, it's impacting my convenience. There are so many items I have needed and Amazon is the best place to get them. And I'm like, no. And my partner's like, you could get Amazon. I was like, no. And my partner hasn't bought from Amazon either. We're both like, no. But it's one of those things where, damn, I'm inconvenienced. Now, obviously, I agree, Chess, as it depends on how your protest manifests. I agree. I think it depends. But I feel it. I feel the inconvenience. And it makes me feel that much more determined to at least do my 12 months. But yeah, it is, it's interesting. I think it also gives you a great feeling of like, okay, it feels like I'm actually doing something a bit. But obviously, like realistically, any form of protest can also be engaged with, even if it's not like really a sacrifice, you know? Or at least what you do publicly, maybe to some extent. But yeah, I will say like, I think it could be either. I think there is a nuance to it, but just food for thought.
In a recent piece in The Nation titled "The Age of the Assassination Meme is Here," Alex Peter writes, quote, "Assassination discourse has become ambient, not quite satire, not quite sedition, a feeling, a refusal to say what you mean because meaning things can actually be dangerous. And yet people do mean things. The line between the person who's joking and the person who's serious has never been thinner." At the heart of all of this is a kind of disassociation. It's an inability to process the enormity of everything. The climate is collapsing. Fascism is rising. Healthcare is a game show. We're all screaming into the void. Is it really so surprising that the language of internet memes and murder has started to overlap? Peter notes
internet memes and murder.
That the phrase, quote, "when it happens" has become both a threat and a prayer. As Citarella explained, COVID, Gaza, and all the events over the past few years have revealed just how many people's lives are truly expendable. We see the government pushing the idea that poor, immunocompromised, disabled, and trans people are better off dead. Tens of thousands of innocent children in Gaza are deemed expendable. These memes are saying, okay, if slaughtering people is deemed acceptable by the state, then why can't we slaughter the people actually doing harm? Citarella said, quote, "I think there was an era of liberal society in which there was a generally agreed upon value of the individual. You would even even grant your enemies certain imbued or alienable rights. As much as people might have despised a certain person in power or whatever, they would also kind of have this moral conviction that they would not root for this person's bodily harm. The majority of people supported more discursive political means like voting and peaceful protests. But I don't think that's the consensus anymore. I think we're sitting on top of a pressure cooker. Advocating for political assassinations is the most clear sign that millions of people no longer have hope in our system. If there was any sort of legible or coherent plan by people in power to improve things for average people and hold those like Trump and Elon to account, the public would have faith that someone, anyone, was steering the ship. But because there's no plan and no one in power, especially the Democrats, seem to want to save us, people are seeking extreme solutions. And I just want to point out, once again, that the right has long embraced this style of extreme rhetoric. They've openly supported violent vigilante justice for years by turning figures like Kyle Rittenhouse and Derek Chauvin into right-wing heroes, rewarding them with an endless stream of money and media opportunities. And to give you a few more examples, in 2019, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a Facebook video accusing Nancy Pelosi of treason and saying that she had committed crimes punishable by death. Greene has advocated for the execution of prominent Democrats, including Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, as well as FBI agents. Lauren Boebert and other Republican members of Congress flaunt guns openly and call for violence against migrants. In 2020, Donald Trump Jr. posted a photo on Instagram holding an AR-15 rifle adorned with Crusader imagery and the phrase "Do Vault," a slogan associated with the medieval crusades that has been adopted by violent far-right extremist groups. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, the architect of Project 2025, basically said that the United States is undergoing a second American revolution that might not be bloodless. Matt Shea, a former Republican Washington state representative, distributed a manifesto that advocated for the killing of all non-Christian males who refuse to follow biblical law. Republicans frequently speak about executing migrants, undocumented immigrants, disabled and trans people, and others who they feel are undesirable. For instance, in 2024, Republican Congressman Mike Collins tweeted about Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet's practice of executing political opponents by throwing them from helicopters. He suggested killing a migrant arrested in New York by giving them, quote, a free helicopter ride. As the 2024 article in The Nation notes, quote, the state isn't anti-violence, it's anti-unsanctioned violence. Murder is only inappropriate if it happens in the wrong direction. Hence, the rise of assassination memes. Jamie Cohen, the academic, said, quote, Gen Z especially feels power.
Hold on. Chat says, hard question. When we are dealing with the big box, individuals using the capitalistic system to protest, I don't think that works at all unless consumers don't rely on product movements are what's needed. For the record, I'm not protesting Amazon because I think it will make a collective difference. I'm doing it so I live within my values, the closest that it coincides with my joy. I'm not becoming plant-based because I think the world's going to change and be plant-based. I'm doing it because it coincides the most with my values. And my values might look like my values will stay the same, but how I engage in my values might change. But I am not doing any form of protest because I think the world will get on it. I'm doing it because it's with my values. Just so you guys know from my perspective. So great question. But from Brittany's perspective, anytime I talk about any form of activism, I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. And I'm doing it for the future. I'm not doing it for you. Just so you know. I want to be able to sleep at night and feel good about myself. And I also want to know that I'm doing something that I think will matter in the future. And that's why I say the world is a reflection of us as a whole. Because our values allow us to go to sleep every night knowing that we're engaging with that much more harm. And I am trying to figure out in what ways can I mitigate the harm and still go to sleep at night and feel okay about it. And that will look different. I go to sleep every night engaging in levels of harm. You know what I mean? That I might feel bad about tomorrow, but right now I don't feel so bad about. So I'm just trying to make sure what is making me feel bad. Guilt is betraying something of your own values, your own bubble. And shame is the value of the other people. I don't really experience shame unless I share values with other people, right? Then I might feel shame from a bubble who's like, hey, Brittany, are these your values? I'm like, let me think about it. Yeah, let me re-examine how I'm engaging with this thing. Chat says, okay, I get you. I think I was thinking about the whole question regarding if you protest once while not actively mitigating harm. Oh, great question, actually. No, great. You're smart. Great question. Yeah, and that is the question. I think what I would encourage everyone to do is make sure that you are moving within your own values. And then if you want to get other people involved, like I told my partner the other day, I was like, man, I get comments from people that say, oh, like you really helped me reignite my passion for veganism, or like, hey, I'm thinking about doing plant-based because you are. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm influencing people. And sometimes that gives me anxiety. Sometimes when I share what I'm doing with my life and then you guys tell me like, oh, because you did this thing, I'm doing it too. I'm like, oh God. And then I have to recognize that like that is a part of the deal I've made by being a public figure. Is now the deal I've made is that what I do in public might influence people. So I should be careful. Right? But sometimes I forget that I'm just out here examining and bubble hopping and engaging in bubbles. And I was doing that earlier where I would tell you guys what YouTuber I was watching. And then I realized it sounded like I was endorsing that YouTuber. So I stopped telling you guys if I was watching somebody that I thought was bad because I was interested in learning about their bubble. And I get reminders every day that just because I'm experiencing something solo doesn't mean I have to share it with my audience, because even though I'm learning and trying to figure out the bubble, I might come across like I'm endorsing it on stream. So I have to be careful about like saying, oh, I watched this YouTuber, because it might sound like I used to do this even with like Sneeko and Asmin in the boy bubble, where I would watch them and people would think that I was like a fan. I'm not a fan of their content. I was just watching them in a way that was like, oh, this is somewhat enjoyable, but not for the reasons that a fan would be watching somebody. Like, I think there is a difference between being like a fan and being like, I really agree with them, and just being like, oh, I really like their content. I kind of get it, but I don't like them and I don't believe what they believe. So I don't watch the boy bubble like that anymore, but I was never like a fan, but people thought I was like a fan. You know, and that's interesting to me. So I got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Powerless in this system, and they're posting this content because it's their way of expressing their emotions and feelings about not having power. There's a collective nihilism online right now, and these memes show people aren't alone in those thoughts. These memes may feel glib, but they exist within a framework of real political breakdown. They're a symptom of a profoundly sick society, but it's not sick in the way that most people would think. In my opinion, it's not sick that people want to unalive Trump and the billionaires who are responsible for so much suffering. It's sick that people in power have normalized such obscene levels of systemic violence, especially against marginalized groups. The "someone's gotta do it" memes also show how inadequate traditional political language is in describing what we're all going through right now. The ways that people, especially young people, express themselves online by being ambiguous, sarcastic, and kind of ironic are actually adaptive behaviors. People are trying to articulate the outrage and desperation that they feel at a time when too much directness will get you punished. That's why all these memes allow for a certain level of plausible deniability. This is also part of why attempts to suppress these types of memes, whether from the left or the right, tend to backfire, treating them like traditional criminal threats.
I also think like Elon doing the Nazi salute is a form of violence that he can justify when you punch back. Like, whoa, why are you escalating the violence? Yeah, but that was a threat. And that's the dilemma, is like doing the Nazi salute is a threat. And that's why I'm saying it might be a joke to you and your friends to be like, the Roman salute, ha ha, the Roman salute, ha ha. And I think that, yeah, in the privacy of your home where no one is being impacted and you're not actually signaling to Nazis, sure. But on the internet, where people are seeing it and then using it as a thing that becomes normalized in culture to the point where people don't even understand when they're actually signaling it to people, then we have to have a conversation. Do we ever get to normalize the Nazi salute as something that's just a meme? We're not even close. We're so, guys, Gabor Mate was an infant in the Holocaust. People are alive today who served on the German side. Like a German soldier was just arrested for his contribution to the genocide or to the Holocaust that happened with the Jews, right? So it's too recent. Everyone keeps acting like we're so far from Hitler. Hitler was yesterday. It just happened. It just happened. Segregation just happened. Having to integrate black and white kids into schools together just happened. This is recent history. This is recent history. I think we forget. You know why? Because it's so American. I'll give you a really random but very comparable example. When I first came to Europe, I was living in my partner's initial apartment, which was like his bachelor pad or his single person apartment. And when I got into the building, I said, oh, this building feels so old. And my partner's like, no, this is a new building. And I was like, or a newer building. I was like, well, how new could it be? It feels like it's from the 70s. And they were like, yeah, it's like a newer building. And I was like, okay, we're going to have to redefine new building. Because I'm from America and like the 70s is like an old building. But that's the problem, is we think the 70s was like a mythical past that isn't here. But we have to remember, like, that is recent. That things are recent. And so if this happened in the last couple hundred years, which by the way, I am shooketh at how much tech development and destruction of the human planet and expanding of the birth rate happened in the last 200 years. I think we are very confused about how much the world significantly changed over the last 200 years. And we're living through it. Like, I don't think you know how significant it is. I know people don't know how significant it is that you're alive right now. And I know no one's going to remember us and none of this will matter, but it really does matter. It's going to matter 1,000 years from now. And they're going to look back at this era of our lives and they're going to talk about us. And it's not going to be good. It's going to be somewhat good, but it's going to be kind of bad. But yeah, like, wow. Like, it's that, you want to know when I feel like overwhelmed a little bit when I read about history and I'm like, oh, we did so much bad in so little time. Like, oh, like we did so much bad. Like there's these birds in Australia they're doing research on. I saved a video for you where the birds have plastic inside of them. And when you press the bird, you can hear the plastic. And I'm like, oh no, we fucked up. We so fucked up. And I'm all about tech advancements, but we fucked up. And it's going to be so consequential. I mean, it already is. But, ooh, girl, we fucked up.
Rather than cultural signals, misdiagnoses the root problem. It escalates distrust and it reinforces the perception that the system doesn't actually fear violence. It simply won't tolerate dissent. And I'd argue that the more expressions like this are punished, the more they're validated in the eyes of those who share the public's underlying frustrations. But what I hope I've shown you in this video is that the someone needs to do it meme is not just about venting frustration. It's a cultural phenomenon shaped by years of policy failure, betrayal, and institution.
Hold on. I want to show you this video, but my TikTok wants me to log in because it's gay. Hold on. In the good way. Choose your skip. Oh, did it log me out? Oh, it logged me out? No way, bro. Never mind. It logged me out and it's too hard to log back in. Oh, damn. I'll show you this. I'll show you the video tomorrow if I remember.
Institutional decay. It represents a widespread recognition that no meaningful change is coming from traditional political structures, especially the Democratic Party, and that basic terms of our social contract have eroded beyond repair. But if we want this energy to lead anywhere productive, we have to do more than just analyze the meme's popularity. We have to confront the larger question of what now? What should we actually do if nothing's changing? To answer that, we need to talk about the erosion of collective memory. One of the most significant—
Oh my God, Michael Burns, I'm going to send you guys there right after this, is talking to FD Signifier right now. I think they're about to go live. So after this video, I'm almost done. I'll send you over there in a few minutes.
Significant political projects of the last 4 years has been the campaign to make us forget 2020. Forget the mutual aid, forget the federal eviction moratorium, forget the expanded unemployment benefits.
Oh, I could also send you to NOAA. I'll send you to whoever's available.
Forget the free childcare. Forget the brief glimpse we had of a government responding to people's needs instead of corporate profits. Forget the spontaneous uprisings. Forget the decentralized care networks. Forget the sense that ordinary people were capable of extraordinary coordination, compassion, and solidarity. This revisionist erasure is essential to ushering in fascism, because if people remembered what was possible, they might demand it again. Instead, we've been fed a steady diet of manufactured moral panic controversies, false normalcy, and an intentional abandonment of public health and labor protections. The goal was never just to end pandemic safety measures. It was to obliterate the idea that a different kind of society had ever been glimpsed. But not everyone forgot, and that's part of why we're seeing the language of frustration grow sharper, darker, and harder to police. These memes are vague and ironic, but the emotion behind them is grief mixed with clarity. People see that
Wait, one of y'all autistic white Nintendo fans in America got a chance to change the world is all I'm saying. Jesus, bro. 4 million views.
Institutions meant to protect us won't, and the politicians meant to represent us don't. I see these memes as collective outrage begging for structure. This brings us to the ultimate challenge. How do we transform this bubbling outrage into systems that can survive and resist the slow collapse that we're all living through? This is not something we can vote our way out of. Both political parties have shown their willingness to align with fascism, ignore genocide, and abandon the disabled to mass death. No amount of messaging or getting out the vote will realign a system that views basic survival as a partisan issue. Instead, we have to rebuild what was briefly visible in 2020: community care, mutual aid, and horizontally organized support systems that bypass state structures and center vulnerable people. And while organizing things like a food drive or Venmoing a friend for groceries is really, really great, what we need most is to design durable, long-term frameworks for collective survival. This means infrastructure, supply chains, legal defense networks, tenant unions, recentering public health, and it means doing all of this while also being honest about the scale of collapse that we're facing. To do any of this, we have to undo the propaganda that told us that individualism is the rational response to state collapse. This means undoing years of propaganda claiming things like masking is a personal choice and not collective care, that solidarity is weakness, or that we need to sacrifice vulnerable groups so the rest of us can live in normalcy. This means refusing to normalize mass death, whether it's here or abroad. And it means refusing to throw trans and other vulnerable people under the bus just because a politician told you that that's the price of winning. We're running out of time to do this stuff. If we don't want to wake up in a fully authoritarian state, we have to stop waiting for top-down reform. If we let these memes and moments pass by without building on them, I think we're going to end up in a really bleak place. We're going to witness what usually happens when authoritarianism and oligarchs take power. Most people will accept a slow decline. They'll retreat further into individualism and focus on caring for their immediate family over others and exit the political arena entirely. Authoritarianism rarely takes control through force. It's usually just through resignation. But these memes show how many...
Ooh, listen to that, girls.
Authoritarianism rarely takes control through force. It's usually just through resignation. But these...
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Listen to it again.
Further into individualism and focus on caring for their immediate family over others and exit the political arena entirely. Authoritarianism rarely takes control through force. It's usually just through resignation. But these memes show how many people do still care. They prove that there is a desire for change, even if it hasn't yet found form. And as we build the structure and strategy, we need to recognize that the most subversive thing we can do right now is protect each other, because obviously no one in power will. Someone does need to do it. Not the thing that the meme implies, but the thing that no one wants to admit is necessary. Building something new outside the system with each other. Thanks for watching.
Ooh, what does that mean? That's too vague. Building something new outside the system with each other. I don't know, girl. Are we talking about like a cult commune? Or are we talking about, I don't know what that means. See, too vague. I don't know about that. Yeah, like a cult? Like, I don't know what that means. Mutual aid? Yeah, like, I don't know what that means either. I'm not much of a group project kind of person, so I know we're all in this group project together, but like, I'm really going to struggle, just autistic to autistic, with like what that means. You got to tell me exactly what my role is. Otherwise, I don't know. But I like the video overall. And I do recommend you check out her channel. This is Taylor Lorenz. I'll go ahead and link the video in the chat. Also, it looks like both Michael Burns and Noah have their redirect turn off, possibly. The way that it works is people let you redirect to their channel, but only if they're open to the public redirection or they have you on a list. So it looks like they both have it closed and I'm not on either of their lists. So I can't redirect you directly to their streams, but I'll go ahead and link you to Michael Burns, who's currently interviewing FD Signifier. And I will link you to Noah, who is probably just waking up, honestly, who is streaming to raise money for Gaza. He has already raised over $300,000. Which was $100,000 plus more than his initial. I think he was trying to raise $200,000 and he's raised almost $400,000. So go check it out. Go be a part of it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chats and joining memberships. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. 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 Have a good day. Thank you for being here. Have a good day. Bye-bye. 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 Okay, bye.